Hello, besties. Welcome in. We're back at it again. Um, so we last time we left off was a little bit of an interesting situation. Some stuff was sort of brewing. Um, so we are on this island after this goblin fight, and we did some exploration, and we found a sort of temple situation out in this jungle with some weird stuff going on in the surroundings. We had encountered like areas around this temple building that were sort of placed differently in time. And we sort of investigated around, we poked around, and we got stabbed by a frosty arrow from beyond, and emerging from the wood was Tessa, who is our newest NPC, and she's really something. Um, Tessa, I will remind you what she looks like. So she has a like just kind of dark skin that shimmers in the sunlight a bit strangely. She bears the pointed ears of elf heritage, but she looks distinctly human, so half elf. She has blue, sort of flowing robes slash dress that reveal her legs and arms, which are covered in blue symbols. She has short, curly, dark hair that sort of frames her ears, and she carries a staff with her, which she's been using quite liberally, because we had who got hit was Faustus and Raven, I believe, got stabbed. Yeah, got hit with a frosty arrow that very quickly overtook them with literal frostbite as their limbs began to freeze. Tessa was, if you remember from, I think it was last episode, where Tessa is sort of the object of their quest. It's who they're looking for. This mysterious voice on the wind, who last time we identified as Saloon, the goddess of the moon, requested that you seek out Tessa to help with your further adventures. And you found her, or rather, she found you. And in order for her to work with you, she said that you have to prove yourself. So she took you to a village sort of a little ways away from this temple, kind of nestled deeper in the jungle. And it's full of kids. Not in a weird way, but they're all just sort of there. There's huts kind of about on both the ground and up in the trees, like connected by little bridges, and it's like a camp, a home. And all these kids are sort of milling about. The oldest is maybe 12 or 13. The youngest maybe around 4 to 6. And they're all just living here. And Tessa brought you here, and the children were not... They kind of were excited to see you, which nobody was a fan of, ironically. But after some uncomfortable meet and greets, and everybody got situated, Tessa was kind of like, there is a fight coming. And if you help, I'll help you. And with this deal, you sort of accept this deal, not really knowing what you were going into. And we had some pirates that were not from your crew arrive on the island. And they started poking around. And very quickly and very easily, they were taken into custody. And these kids really wanted to set them on fire. They were tied to a stake, all of them to their own stake, and set above little pits of kindling in record time. And you all managed to kind of be like, let's pump the brakes here. Let's not roast people. We can roast people, but not roast them. And that's kind of where we're picking up today. After this exploration, you're kind of trying to earn Tessa's favor. She hasn't told you much of what's going on. She's sort of given you bits and pieces. I think one of... Raven was pulling on... This is where we ended, so this is actually where we're going to pick up. Raven took special notice. There was one boy among the oldest. He looks about 12 or 13. He's got bright red hair, and he's kind of like tanned out in the sun, and he's got spunk. He's a feisty one, and Raven has sort of taken an interest in him. And we, if you'll remember last time, by poking the bear, you kind of put two and two together, that this boy shares a striking resemblance to a statue and some paintings that you found back at that temple. And so that's where we're going to pick up right now. So, like I said, this area where this village is about 30 ish feet in diameter. Um, so it's a pretty large space, but it's not like you're not anywhere sprawling. You can very well visually keep tabs on every area here. Um, and during we had this big confrontation, right, where we had all of these pirates taken into this main village. All of the kids wanted to burn them. This seems like a routine. And by stopping them, we now have a bit of like where everybody's butting heads. Especially, and I forgot to mention this in our little recap, I apologize, because somebody from Casper's past showed up, a certain James. That's the only name you've been given for him. But he is the captain of the pirates who were poking around. And he sort of just slunk up from the beach after being spotted by Faustus and nearly shot. Faustus shot a warning shot at him. And that's where this conflict is now, is them exchanging words and everyone trying to figure out what to do with these pirates. The party has kind of been on the let's talk about this side, and everybody else has been on the roast pirates side, so we'll see. But Raven, so during all of this, that boy was very upset at the lack of pirates over a grill, and some comments were made about him and a particular ruling style, perhaps. And he stormed off to one of the huts on the ground level and sort of shut himself in. And that's where you follow him. It's not necessarily a door, like, it's a door in concept, but it's more like if you breathe on it, it just falls over. It's like woven palm leaves and thatch. So you slide it open pretty easily. And you see him sitting on a small, rickety, kind of sad-looking bed. And there's just a window kind of cut out of one of the walls here, and there's not really much in the way of belongings. There's a small, like a stump. Not necessarily stump. It's not really rooted into the ground, but like a log for like a table and a smaller log for a seat. And you see various like woven palm leaf decorations around. But there's not much. It's just a hut. And he does not look at you, but you cannot imagine that he didn't hear you come in. He's just sort of sitting with his knees to his chest.
Raven sort of notices his demeanor and sort of just like cautiously leans in like the door frame because she saw the state of the door and was just like, this is probably how the rest of the house structure integrity is like, um and kind of just like, I'm sorry about my comment earlier. um it's just been frustrating trying to get information and sort of be forced to um, act without all of the information and knowledge that we need. So we've been just playing catch up, and I think I took out that frustration on you. Anyway,
Um,
you are the king, correct? Or
he looks up and he goes, yeah,
um
that's it.
I'm going to assume it's the wraiths that got you guys in as well.
I wish.
Oh,
He sort of unfolds his knees and he goes from like being in this protective little ball to kind of sitting crisscross, and he's got his hands open on his legs. And you see in the sunlight that's kind of streaming in through this window, that there's sort of like red and golden like motes of light drifting up from his hands, and he's kind of looking down at it, and he's very sad. And in this very small, I don't want to say broken, but defeated voice, this boy goes, I can tell you more, but you have to promise to help. I and he it looks like he sort of it's a weird experience talking to him, right? Because as he's formulating some of his thoughts, it's like you're experiencing simultaneously talking to the 13-year-old who's very
mhm.
angsty and doesn't want to talk to you, and you're talking to this older person, this older psyche that is tired and worn. And eventually that side of him seems to win over. He goes, we've been here too long, and Tessa is trying to protect us. She really is, and she has. But I can't lose more people, and I can't keep doing this. I, when I was young, when I had first taken the throne from my father, I had kind of made this inside joke with our people that I never wanted to grow up, and so our kingdom wouldn't. But it's been too long, and I think I would rather be myself again than be a boy.
um, I do want to know what happened. Uh, it's just that I'm afraid of um, promising you that I can help when I don't know if I actually can. I want to.
Um, I don't know much. I wish I had more to offer you, but Tessa's the one that knows most. But I suppose the best version with the least holes in it is that we arrived here by ship. They arrived here by ship. Sorry, that's a DM flub, not him. They arrived here by ship. I was already here with my people, very small community. And we sort of we cohabitated. It wasn't hard to take in refugees. We didn't have a lot. But something happened, and I still can't quite remember what. When I think about it, there's just this gap in my memory. But everything we had, everything we built, was gone, taken, as if centuries had passed. And when I tried to fight it, I tried to find answers. I still don't even know from who. I was a boy again, and I was thrown aside, and I I don't know. I don't know whose blood is on my hands. All I know is every few days these invaders come and they slaughter everyone in the village and they leave. And it's nothing but me among bodies. And sometimes Tessa lives. Sometimes she's there. Sometimes she holds me and she's like, it's going to be all right, but it's not. Because the next day, everyone wakes up and it's fine. But I have to remember. I have to remember seeing everybody strewn in the ocean and their bodies up the beach. So I am very tired. You can imagine. And as he's talking, you you see these motes of light grow stronger, like more of them are coming, and they're sort of starting to fill the room like fireflies.
Hmm. Are the invaders those exact pirates that are out there now?
Yeah. I
Were
Go ahead.
were they the people that came here originally that you took in?
No. We took in Tessa and some of the other children. Um I think some of them may have been my people, but every time, like I said, every time I think of it, there's just a gap. Um, but those pirates, every 3 days, there's a cycle. At dawn, on the first day, everything is fine. By nightfall, I start to get suspicious. On the second day, we see the ship on the horizon, and by the third, they're storming the beach. I don't I don't know what their involvement is with this. It seems like they just showed up, but I do know after, well, I don't know how long, that they're ruthless. They're beyond ruthless, actually. They're greedy and they're horrible, and given the chance, I'm almost certain they would do it again. So we get our kicks in where we can.
And no matter how many pirates you kill, they just keep coming back?
Every 3 days.
Fuck. Hold on. Could could I do maybe a history check
Uh,
to
what are
see
you
if
what are you trying
to
to do?
see if like I have ever heard or learned anything about like a kingdom in this area that used to be here or anything?
Yeah, go ahead and do history for me.
Okay.
Wait, is your history higher or is your religion higher?
My religion is higher.
Do religion.
Okay. 19.
All right. So, you kind of think back among what you're taught, what you remembered, and yes and no is the best way to put it. Um,
Fantastic.
you cannot necessarily place a specific kingdom. Nothing comes to mind, especially out in this region when you don't know where you are. Really,
Hmm.
you assume you are somewhere within Shelleen Bay off of Rydell, because, I mean, that's a logical assumption to make, right? But you don't know exactly where you are. And that's kind of a problem. What you do know, though, digging more into the religion side of things, you you don't know a lot about it, right? Because this sort of sect is not it kind of doesn't pair with what you had practiced before.
Hmm.
But you do remember hearing of a religion that was sort of a black sheep among others, where you had like the basic structure from what you remember. You can't really remember any specific like folk stories or anything like that, but there is a god king who is blessed with eternal time, and that does kind of rub against your memory, but you don't nothing specific comes to mind besides that.
Um, I'm just gonna ask him, like, is he that God king that I had heard of.
That is not a very specific question.
Okay.
Let's try and rephrase. Okay, so you're trying to
Okay,
figure out
okay.
if he's like the mythical, like, are you trying to connect him to like the temple stuff, or are you trying to connect him to specifically like what you know about?
Like the temple and everything. Like
Okay.
I'm trying to piece together um like the things I saw at the temple and my previous knowledge and with what he told me and kind of like stack it all together.
Okay. I don't even know how to put that in question form, so let's assume you ask him a question. That sort of synthesizes all of that. So you ask your question, and he hears your question. Um, and he nods and he goes, I do not recall my name before all of this, but the other children have taken to calling me Peter. Um, so I suppose that is my name now. Um, as for my legacy, yes, that I that would be my, probably not me specifically, if you're referring to what I think you're referring to, but the legacy of my fathers before me. Yes, this was our home.
Mm. Uh, Sorry, I got distracted
By
by
chat,
chat and
yeah.
now I don't know what to say. Um, okay, Peter. Um, why don't we go back to Tessa and the rest of my friends? Um, and we'll try to think and figure out what is happening. Okay?
Okay.
All right. And so I kind of like instinctually like grab his like go to like offer my hand to him to like go out like you do with children.
He would take
Um,
it if you offer.
okay.
He would take it.
So I grab his hand and then we like sort of head out together.
All
I
right.
believe Casper was arguing
He
with.
certainly was.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like then there's a bunch of yelling and Raven's like a fucking course. Like just okay.
Yeah, I had just cast Hold Person
Yeah.
on James, and he and Casper were starting to get into it.
Yeah. The girls are fighting. So, just as a kind of continuity thing, because I'm pretty sure everyone would have noticed, Jake is not with us today. So for all intents and purposes, Faustus is here. But we're just, he's here. He's hanging out. He's not gonna really do anything, but he's observing. So assume that anything within plain view of this area, Faustus would be able to see. Um, and then that takes care of everything. So, okay. To kind of rewind a little bit, this goes into last session as well, that these pirates had snuck by the beach, so the whole camp was ready to throw down, and you guys didn't really know what was coming. You just sort of assumed the battle stations, because Tessa didn't tell you what was coming. And these pirates crept around this corner. There's four of them. There's a female and three males, and none of them seem inclined to speak. They're all really fashionable, I will say. They all have like black pirate outfits in various states going on, but they got the aesthetic going on. It's like, um, so those pirates crept by the beach, and because where you had taken strategic position gave you perfect view of the beach, it was very easy to apprehend them. And then the children took over, put them on the stakes, right? After this happened, and you were, I believe Renori specifically was asking, "Where's your captain?" Um,
Mm-hmm.
that is when Mr. Mans showed up. As you were interrogating them, you saw James kind of slinking. Well, Faustus saw him, but for today, you guys saw James kind of slinking by this entrance to the beach, and Faustus had fired off a warning shot. And that's kind of where we are right now in this main area. He tried to kind of stroll up, like he adjusted himself, tried not to look scared, and then Renori was like, no, hold person, and he is now being held, and Casper and James are getting into it. So Raven, you stroll out with Peter. As Casper is introducing James formally to everybody in a very petty manner, because he's a petty bitch.
I support it.
You know, it's his time. It's Hot Boy Summer. So he sort of gestures at James and he goes, well, I would like to formally introduce everyone to the Queen's greatest weasel, James. And he looks at James and he kind of like spits at James' feet. And he goes, he's still, words. Still a sellout, I see. And, James is trying to have some sort of bravado, but it is very transparent. And, he goes, still a pirate, I see. And he looks back at his crew, and his crew is like, yeah, like, got him. And Casper looks at the four of you, Faustus, more intently, and he goes, he's a privateer for the Queen. Quick definition for anyone that doesn't know what a privateer is, not pirates. Privateers are government, they're like mercenaries, kind of, but they work for the government. So if you've ever seen Pirates of the Caribbean, you know what a privateer is. But yeah, just in case, they're basically government employees who hunt down rogue merchants or anybody that's out on wanted. So,
and in punk rock terms, they're posers.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Thank you. So Casper's just done this, and James is not clapping back very well. And so Raven, you catch that. Yes, Renori.
Yeah, so Renori's gonna, like, turn to Casper and be like, so you mean to say he pretends to be a pirate, but he's actually not?
He is... he's like... Okay, if I were to call him a pirate, then you would call me a ballet dancer.
Well, to be fair, you are pretty good on your feet, so...
Thank you. But no.
If you two are done flirting, Raven interrupts them. But also, she's like blushing like a little bit, Raven. She's kind of like, we have something very important. Or there's something important that everyone needs to know.
Yeah.
And then she sort of takes the sword that she got from earlier, and she points it at James, very close to his throat, and goes, how long have you been slaughtering these children for?
He kind of like does one of these, like, when the point's directed at him. And he swallows and he looks at you very nervously. He goes, well, I wouldn't call it it's not slaughter. That's horrible. Oh, God. It's more like putting...
And then she presses the tip of the sword to his neck.
Okay, please, madame, the sword. Okay. I don't know how long. I wish I could answer you more honestly. I genuinely don't know. It isn't slaughter, though. To put it in very important terms. It's self-defense.
He draws, like, a little bit of blood. She's just like, then what would you call storming a village of children to kill them every 3 days? What would you call that?
At this point, Tide pulls out his scimitar, which, just to recap, he has never used a weapon before in this campaign, hasn't. So, like, you know it's real. And he kind of looks over at Wendy, who is the small girl,
yes,
in, like, disgust, and goes, well, what would you call it then?
Quick recap for chat. Wendy is also one of the older children. She's about 12, 13. Mousy brown hair that's super knotted, kind of pulled back in a black ribbon, like kind of pulled back away from her face, but you can tell it hasn't been washed in an undetermined amount of time. And she's wearing sort of a tattered blue dress, like covered with leaves and stuff like that. Like it's been torn and things like that. Okay. to get back. James sort of looks around. You all seem very upset, which I understand. Don't get me wrong, it looks horrible. But if you give me a chance to explain, I swear to you, it will not be as clear-cut as you presume it to be. And all of the sort of crew are nodding vigorously and going like, yes, please, please, can we, yeah, please.
Raven's like, stop your whimpering and just explain yourself.
Vocabulary. Okay. Well, so, last I remember, as I told you, as you will recall, I do not know the last time that this was. We have no sense of time here, but a long time ago. We were out sailing, on a normal contract, as usual, and he glares very intently at Casper.
Renori's just gonna, like, look at Casper and be like, you're gonna have to explain that.
I have to explain everything. But it's not really venom towards you. He's just very annoyed with this man. And so James is saying, okay, on a normal contract, and we were sort of thrown off course. It was the strangest thing I've ever encountered in all of my years. We've met a lot of tricks, magical and otherwise, but a storm cropped up in seconds. And it just didn't seem natural. And we were sailing through it. I did not know whether we would live, but it threw us over here. And of course, we see land, and the ship we thought would go down. So we get off of the boat, and we take our little dinghy, and we row up to shore to see if it's habitable, or if there's any food, or we could just pitch camp while we wait for the storm to blow over. And then we were attacked. Viciously. And my memory seems to cut out there, but the next thing I remember, I was waking up on the deck of my boat, and I saw an island. And, I had never seen this island before, and we were in the middle of the storm, and he starts saying kind of the same things over and over again. Not exactly, like, on repeat, but, like, he gets caught in this sort of narrative loop.
Renori's gonna, like, interrupt the narrative loop with a question, by the way, that is gonna be coming out of nowhere. Just forewarning.
Okay.
And she's gonna be like, just a random question. Do you know anybody named Thaddeus Blade? Just wondering.
I do.
Has he been in a storm with you at all recently?
Tell you what, you let us go, and we can have a lovely civil conversation about Mr. Blade and perhaps his whereabouts. I would really appreciate not having a sword in my throat.
I think I'm gonna defer to Casper and Raven to make that judgment call, but I don't really like you.
I don't buy it.
He sort of just shrugs, defeated, like he's just here.
Can Tide do a perception check to see if he's telling the truth?
And go ahead and do insight.
Insight.
Yeah, can I do one too?
Absolutely.
I will also roll one.
Yes.
Plus
17.
Oh.
Okay, we have a 25 from Tide, 17 from Renori.
26.
Okay, we're doing soul reading today. Okay, starting with Renori. He from other people that you're able to read, he's not the easiest. You do know, kind of just from his situation, that he has a greater chance of telling the truth because he's desperate. But you cannot determine from his mannerisms specifically whether he's telling the truth. You're just only really able to analyze the situation around him. Raven and Tidy pretty much pick up the same things. That he's desperate and he's losing all of his crew who are currently apprehended. But you also do notice that he's not making much of an effort to struggle, and he did very openly give you a lot of information. So you're still not really able to tell whether or not he's telling the truth just because of how he is as a person, but you do think it's very, very likely that he is.
Raven kind of, she doesn't let the sword go per se, right? But the pressure definitely lightens as she's kind of like, I understand that
Nice.
your life is quite literally in my hands right now, and she does sort of like lean forward as she says this, with like this sparkle of like, I would not hesitate to cut you, bitch, in her eye. And she goes, but why would you just, there's something about you that I do not trust.
I get that a lot, I have to say.
You're not charming. Oh, she just cuts him off.
He sort of looks a little offended.
And she is kind of like, she looks back to Casper and is kind of like, well, do, like, what, it's kind of like a, well, what do you think of what he says?
But okay, before Raven turns around, Renori, Casper leans in. He's like, I'm charming, right?
Annoyingly so, yeah.
Nice.
Before we make any decisions,
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask the question a different way. Mm-hmm. Do you know what happened to Thaddeus? Do you know where he is now?
Like I said, I would love to have a conversation with you. Preferably unparalyzed. Also, preferably not with my crew captive.
To be fair, right about now, the spell will probably break, because it's about a 1-minute concentration, so...
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so, okay, so as he says that, the sort of force that's been holding his arms zippered to his sides breaks, and he sort of slumps in relief, like, thank you.
That wasn't on purpose, dude. It's just how it works.
I'll take it. Ash, I love you. Thank you. So he straightens up and he brushes off his shoulders. He adjusts his little coat. Well, now that we could talk like adults, I would love to tell you where Thaddeus is, under the condition that you release my crew.
Doesn't really feel like an equal exchange.
There's plenty of you, and 5 of us? I just think it would be best to have a humane conversation, rather than taking prisoners.
Raven will look to, Little King, or Peter.
Okay.
And...
Little King, I love it.
And, we'll kind of look to him and just like, what do you think, Peter? Does he deserve a humane conversation?
this is a question. You have stumped the DM. Congrats. Wow. Okay. Yeah, let's yeah. Okay. I like this. I like where this is going. You see Peter. He's been watching, kind of quiet, almost a little bit behind you, Raven. And when you ask him, you see that sort of that older, tired man come back. And it's just in his stance, like he is 13, but he carries himself nobly. And he strides up to James and looks him in the eye. And James looks very frightened. When Peter starts approaching him, you see kind of the color drain from his face. He's, I don't think I ever actually formally described him, so let me do that real quick. If I did, I'll do it again. He's kind of looks like Faustus, a little bit, actually. I'm realizing this now. He's a little pale. He's got a mop of sort of like dark brown hair. Kind of not as long as Casper's, like around his ears and a little in his face. And he's got a coat that's black and it's got like sort of a black rose motif curling on it. And he's got boots, the pants, the pirate shirt, and he's got a few visible scars like on his face as well. But yeah, he's a man. He's just some guy. And Peter strolls up to him and he scrambles back and to quote the Vine that will better say this than I possibly ever could, he really does look like get your fucking dog, bitch. And he's sort of like scrambling backwards as Peter walks up to him, very fearless. And eventually they come to a stop. And James is sort of just heaving heavy breaths. And Peter turns on his heel, and he looks at you, Raven, and he goes, "Let him live, if only so I can kill him myself."
Raven makes that face. Oh, hey, Adam. Raven kind of makes the face that I just said, and it was just like I can respect that.
Yeah, Renori just shouts, "Respect!"
Peter looks at you and he sort of does like a respect nod.
And Raven kind of just says, "As the king wishes," and turns to Tessa and is just like, kind of like gives her a quick glare of like, why the fuck couldn't you just tell us this information beforehand? And then goes to like untie the crewmates.
Okay.
Tide walks up to not the woman, but one of the men, who I'm presuming is probably lower rank, right, based off the description, and holds his scimitar up to like the neck, and then quickly just slices
the ropes,
the vine or the rope or whatever that's holding them up.
It's a vine. So you do that. They don't. The last one kind of doesn't cut cleanly, as you have to like. It kind of ruins your coolness, but it still slowly unravels around the stake because it's a thick vine. And he falls to the sand, and he sort of just like pushes himself up to sit on his knees, and he looks up at you, and he struggles to his feet and goes to help his other crewmates, but like very slowly, like hands up like this.
As one of them, whichever one gets off of their, stake nearest Renori, she's just gonna kick him. Like, just a quick, like, little swift kick as they get off, just to be an asshole, just to be like, you.
Okay, Raven, the first one you untie is the woman, and she doesn't say anything to you, she's just glaring. And the next one is one of the other men, and as you untie him and he falls to the sand, not as gracefully as the other one, he just face full of sand. Renori kicks him.
Raven out loud just like like she lets out a chuckle, and she's just like, nice. She looks at Renori and it's just like, absolutely yes.
So, okay. So the crewmates get released, right? They're all sort of rubbing their wrists and arms, trying to get the feeling back, and James looks relieved to see them safe, but he still looks terrified of Peter's proximity to him, and he hasn't uttered a word since Peter's approached him, and Peter does that thing that he did earlier, where he, levitates.
Goes feral.
Yeah, goes feral. Yeah. And this is feral summer. And that sort of energy gathers around his hands. And he stares back at James, and James scrambles back faster, but he trips and he falls to the sand. And Peter, so for Tide and Renori, you didn't have the conversation, obviously, that Raven had, so this is kind of you seeing these traits for the first time. But with the way that he's carrying himself, like, this is rage. This is not 13-year-old creature that's angry at society. This is the rage of someone who's been through hell. And it simply should not be on a child. And Peter just bellows down at James. You took everything from me. And James is muttering incoherent pleas, like with his hands raised. And looking at Peter with wide eyes. Are you guys going to intervene?
Raven does like approach him and sort of places a hand on Peter's shoulder. And it's just like, Peter, I promise you, you can do whatever to him, but we need to find out where, forgets his name, Thaddeus is. We need to figure out where Thaddeus is.
We need to know where the guy is. The guy.
The dude.
The dude.
The guy. The dude.
The guy is the dude.
The person.
I'm walking here.
Nice. Okay, he comes down. And he kneels next to James, who is just kind of frozen in place. And he holds one of his hands wreathed in this swirling energy above James's chest. And he goes, answer her questions. And he looks back at you, Raven.
Oh.
Besties.
Raven looks at him, and just is like, well, your crew is free. Where's Thaddeus? What do you know?
Okay, so I don't know where he is, but I can tell you this. So you obviously know of him, so I'll skip the pros. But last I heard of Thaddeus, he went missing in the storm that threw us off. Now, this shouldn't be possible, for the reason that the storm didn't exist until we hit him. DM Flub, until we hit it. The storm didn't exist until we hit it. But I was tracking him down as part of this contract. There's a pirate group who was rumored to have kidnapped him. So I was hunting them down, and they apparently went down in a storm, according to rumors. So I went to where we thought they sunk, and then I got blown here. But the odd thing is, when we were in the storm, I saw their ship. And I don't think I was supposed to. And he sort of clamps his mouth shut after that.
Raven, James is kneeled on the ground.
Yeah, he's like he's kind of like elbows up in the sand like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Raven, again, she didn't really sheath her sword.
Yeah.
She was just
Yeah.
kind of been like holding it. Points it at him again, except at his genital area. um, and just
Um, I will
and
just
is
I will say that there
uh
is more fear for his balls than there are for his life. Just
well,
so
perfect.
yeah,
I was kind of banking on this.
yeah.
Um, and she says, elaborate now.
So okay, that's really not necessary. And
I think it is.
he's like
Elaborate now.
he's trying to like subtly scoot away from you.
Yeah, the point follows his balls
Perfect.
as he's scooting.
Okay, so he's sort of shuffling. Okay, really no need. So, I wish I had more information for you because I love helping you. It's the joy of my life. However,
Shut the fuck up. No, you don't.
You're full of shit.
really, I'm just come on. And,
Raven leans in and is just like, remember, I don't find you charming. So
okay,
all of these tricks are just pissing me off. She kind of digs, she
digs it
puts
in a
the
little bit.
slightest amount of pressure on with the sword. And like the sword kind of cuts one of the
Cuts his pants
stitches
just a little bit.
of his pants, like right in that middle seam.
Nice.
And Renori's just gonna shout, "No wonder why you're one of the queen's bitches."
Nice. Casper sort of bumps your shoulder for that one. He laughs a little bit. Um, so okay, so he's got his hands up. He's like, okay. Really, no need for this. So I don't know much else, and his voice is sort of stuck in this octave, by the way. I don't know much else. But so we were in this storm, and I saw on the horizon the the ship that looked like the one we were looking for, but it shouldn't have been possible because the ship sunk.
Yeah, we heard this story already.
No, you don't understand. The ship sunk. So it's not. I promise I am not running circles around you. I've never seen anything like this before. And it wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't a tricks of the storm. I have sailed through plenty. We saw the ship. We saw the banner. It waved. And we were blown off course. And now, tell me this. And he's looking at you, Raven, and he kind of casts a glance over at Tide and Renori as well. Wouldn't you think it odd to see a ship that you knew sunk about 3 months ago in a storm that you're just in now that you didn't know existed?
Nah, dude, I'm a wizard. Weird shit is like my specialty.
I'm not a wizard.
Nah, dude.
I'm not a wizard. I have not
Um,
trained in magics. So if this is normal, I apologize. I'm not running circles around you. But for me, this was incredible.
I mean, it's kind of weird, yeah, but like not incredible.
Raven gets his attention again by just like tapping his ball sack with the sword. And she's just like, "You're an imbecile. Could
With
you
the sword, right?
with the sword? Yes.
With the sword.
Like it, just a little dudge. But she's kind of like, so you have confirmation, solid confirmation that the ship sank. It didn't just disappear.
I swear it. And he goes to reach into his coat. Do you allow this?
Um,
He's like he's reaching like he's frantic like he's reaching. So he's not. There's no
could I
careful.
do like kind of some sort of check to see like if like what his intention
Yeah,
is
do
with going
insight.
in there?
Do insight.
Okay.
While this is happening,
What's up, Tide?
can I assume that the other crew members are still
They're all just
like
standing around.
okay?
Yeah.
um,
They're not. Yeah, they're surrounded. They're not going anywhere.
Okay.
23.
Okay. Yeah. You can very well assume that he's trying to show you something relevant.
Okay.
He doesn't seem to be like threatening.
Hiding a weapon or
Nah.
anything.
It looks like he's trying to
Yeah.
show you something relevant.
All right, then yes,
Okay.
he may proceed.
He reaches into his coat, and he pulls out a document and he goes, here. And he hands it to you, Raven. It's like a piece of parchment.
Um, okay. She grabs it.
Mm-hmm.
What does it say?
So it's a letter. You would you know the? Yeah, you would know the seal. I feel like you've been here in this area long enough. You recognize the seal of the kingdom you're in. So just kind of affixed as a blue wax seal affixed to one top, the top bit of it, and you see a letter, and it's addressed to James, and you skimming through it, it is essentially saying that there's a rumor that this pirate ship, specifically a pirate ship, sunk in the bay, and there gives you a location called Luna Island. And then it also lists another location that you are not familiar with, primarily because when you look at it, your eyes go crossed. So that's fun. Like you look at it to read it, right? Like it's letters, okay? Like there's letters there in an order that should be a word. But when you read it, your eyes just kind of like you can't process what it says.
What is it called? Where is the spell?
If you're looking for your languages, I will say probably not, because it doesn't appear.
No. I can't hold up. I have. Where would I find this? Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. Yes.
You're fine.
So one of my Eldritch invocations,
Mm-hmm.
right, is Eyes of the Runekeeper. I can read all writing. Would that be relevant in this situation?
That's more of a language thing. And
Dang
this
it.
doesn't appear to be like you don't understand the language. It appears to be like there's something blocking you from perceiving what it says. Because the letter's just in common.
I hand the letter to both Renori and Casper.
Okay.
Just because
It's tied just like, what the heck, man?
no, but that's just because I would assume that like if if anyone could possibly like hopefully know any kind of counterspell or anything, it would be Renori. Because she's actually like classically trained in
Right.
some of the shit.
First, I'm
real quick.
go ahead.
I want to finish summarizing what the letter said, because
Yeah,
that was the
okay,
only
go
piece
ahead.
you didn't.
Oh,
So,
okay.
The letter essentially says that this ship crashed, and it gave the two locations as like a search area. So one of them was Luna Island, the other one you couldn't read. And it said that the ship was likely holding hostages, including the famed bladesmith Thaddeus Blade. So, you also, the letter says like that retrieving the captain is of utmost priority, and it's ordering James specifically to hunt him down and bring him in alive to be promptly executed. And the letter does have a date. I do not remember how Faerun dates work, so we're just gonna say it's 3 months ago. So,
Okay.
yeah, he hands you this letter. This letter makes its way to you as well, Renori, where you're able to see that. You may roll me Arcana to see if you understand what is going on.
Okay. In the that's a natural 20
Oh.
for a 26.
That's probably gonna be better than Casper's, but I'm still gonna try.
And then but also Renori is gonna say, Casper, you're not that captain they want to execute per the letter, are you?
I'm a captain that wants to be executed, but I don't recall crashing.
I'm just clarifying, because I'm not really ever sure with you, so...
Understandable, but no.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, this is normal. Okay, so what was, you got a nat 20?
Yeah, for a total of 26.
Nice. Okay, so you do understand that so it's hard to isolate, not because you don't know what this is, it's just because this doesn't seem to be a standard incantation. Not incantation is like the type of spell, but just a standard spell. You recognize that this is some sort of like illusory magic to obscure the words, probably akin to like a thaumaturgy or something like that. But the specific handiwork has been tweaked, where you can't perceive beyond it. Like it doesn't, you know, like the basic counter spell comes to mind, but you could not guarantee that it would work.
Can I try to spell magic?
You can try.
I don't like that inflection.
You're gonna have to roll for it.
Okay.
I don't remember. I think it's hold on. Let's dispel magic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
So you okay, yeah. So can you go ahead and what's your spellcasting ability?
Which number is that? Is it the modifier, spell attack, or the save DC?
It's modifier.
That's +3.
Okay, wait, no. So on your spellcasting sheet, like your spell slot at the top, you should see like there's a box. Let me look at the sheet,
Yes.
so I'm not saying anything wrong, but it should say just like what your spellcasting ability is. That's like what you cast spells out of. Like, so wizard, I believe, is intelligence off the top of my head. But I've never done it.
Yes, it is.
Okay, correct. Excellent. So you're going to roll me an intelligence check.
Gotcha. Right. That makes sense. Is it an intelligence saving throw?
No, it is a...
Or just regular intelligence check?
It's just a regular. Yeah.
17.
Okay. So you send out a pulse of sort of scrambling energy, and you see this weird kaleidoscope-esque effect dissipate, and under that weird scrambling is the name of a place. And when you look at it, you get a very foreboding feeling. And it says the Kraken's Grasp. You don't really off the top of your head know what that means, but you get an immediate sinking feeling looking at the words.
Okay. Alright, I'll relay that information to, like, the rest of the group.
Okay, everybody else, you get the brain download.
Can we do a history check to see if we know the relation between
You may.
Luna Island and the Kraken?
Oh, okay, yeah, me too, I guess.
Go for it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I mean, I don't think I know anything.
Understandable. No? Okay. Raven?
We were doing history, right?
14? 14?
we'll talk about you. Nine's
Okay.
not gonna do it.
You and me.
It's fine. He's never been on the water.
Yeah, he wouldn't. It's
Doesn't make sense.
That would be a natural 20.
nice. All right. All right. Numbers tonight.
23
Renori.
altogether.
Okay. Renori, you don't know anything concrete, but you do remember during your schooling. This is specific to you, but in the library where you spent a lot of your time, put it like this, in a certain someone's office,
Yeah.
you do remember occasionally being allowed to browse through various books that were squirreled
The
away.
restricted section.
Yeah, like the certain books that were squirreled away from other students, and that name does ring a bell, but you can't connect any other information to it besides that foreboding feeling. Raven,
Is an expert.
No, you also don't know much. But that's not because of you. That's just because there's not much to know. You recall that certain members of your group had gone seaward in order to, spread the religion as religions do. And they never came back. And you do recall that name being tossed around within your circles. And you do know concrete. You may not know where or necessarily what it is or why, but you do know concrete that it's sort of a Bermuda Triangle situation. If you go in, you don't come out. For you that knowledge is connected more to like religion, like the sea gods don't want you passing through their sacred territory, that sort of thing. So you don't really know anything beyond that folk part of it. That's why and where and all that stuff. Okay. So, Casper. So Renori, are you showing Casper this, or do you just tell him what it says?
Both.
Okay. So he's sort of reading over your shoulder, and when you dispel whatever scrambling thing was on there, he goes pale. You physically catch him tense up out of the corner of your eye. But when you look at him, he forcibly relaxes, and tries to pass it off as being normal, but you know what you saw.
Yeah, I'm gonna with one hand grab his forearm and just be like, "Okay, Captain Cutie, you can't fool me. You've got to say out loud what that was about."
He looks at James. He looks back at the letter. He looks at James again, and he looks back at the letter. Okay. Well, that's not a name you ever want to see or hear. Just put it like that. If
the island?
No. Obviously. But he's got really mad at you. He's just like, no. The secret one that they didn't want us to read. Well, there's a story when you first start sailing that they tell you, the older sailors, usually when they're leaving your ship to send you off, that if you pass through the grasp, that you will die and you will sail eternally and just bring down other sailors. I'm butchering. There's a whole song and dance, but no.
Can you do the song and dance?
Would really love to see the dance.
You know what? And he sort of chuckles. And
Performance check!
If you get a few drinks in me tonight, then maybe I'll do the song for you. How about that?
Oh, I'm getting drinks in you.
He sort of he chuckles a little bit, but he starts thinking about it again, and then it disappears. It's a horror story that it's literally a floating graveyard that once you pass within, you don't come back out. And if they're saying that they went down in this, then that means it's real. That lines up with what he was saying. It is a common folktale, but he looks at James. He goes, "You swear you saw this with your own eyes?" And James is nodding very fervently, and goes, "If he saw it, and we have it in writing, I don't. They're alive. The question is how much."
Tide kind of says it out loud, but not to anybody in particular. Why would you went anywhere near there?
Sorry, one more time. Just through my head. I don't know why.
Yeah. So Tide says out loud, but not really directed towards anyone, so anybody near him can hear it. He says, "Why would anybody go anywhere near there then?"
You don't want to. You don't want to. Anybody that passes through the grasp is desperate, on the run, or horribly, horribly lost, which is why they tell newbies that before they sail out for the first time.
What?
Weird, because you didn't tell us that.
Because I'm driving. Like, he's just...
Yeah, we've seen your driving skills.
So...
He's like, But he doesn't
Raven looks at the letter and also at James, and quickly, does it say on the letter who the captain of that ship was that they were trying to hunt down?
It does. You see the name This is fun. I didn't think I get to say this so early. You see the name Captain Hugo Stormborn. Title reference!
She said it!
Hey! And roll credits! That's the end of the campaign, folks! Thank you so much for tuning in.
It's over. Alright, yeah, we're just... everything's gone. I'm just kidding.
Hugo Stormborn. I have trouble with words. Hugo Stormborn. Raven looks between James and Casper and is like, "Have you heard of this captain before?" Mainly at Casper. Like, would he make this mistake? Like, why would you... Like, why... Do you know why he would even attempt to go near the grasp at all?
James pipes up and goes, "Well, most pirates lack self-preservation, so yeah, I'm not surprised he made such a rookie mistake."
Raven, sort of just taps the side of the sword on the area where she's been threatening this whole time to shut him up quickly.
He sort of just squeaks in fear.
In response to that, Renori's gonna look pointedly at James and say, if self-preservation means bending over for the queen, then I'm not sure I'm interested in self-preservation anyway.
You lack vision. It's not...
You lack backbone.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Is James advocating getting pegged by the queen? Am I confused, or is that
You are very confused. However, because I know the queen personally, but that's not what he's saying.
Okay.
Tide looks over and kind of sneers at him. He's like, "Dude, you were hiding in the bushes while the rest of your crew got captured. You have no way to talk."
No. I was strategically planning an entrance so that my crew would escape unscathed, and they know that.
Raven cuts... Like, does he have a belt on at all?
He does, for a sword. He has a belt on, but not for his pants.
Okay, so she cuts that off of him, right? Which is near his genital area.
Yeah.
And she's just like, "You're a coward." Points the point of the sword down,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like, "You will not speak until you are addressed directly."
I was
Do I make myself
addressed.
clear?
I was addressed. I would just like to point out I was
Shut up.
addressed.
She looks at Casper again and reiterates the question about Hugo Stormborn, and is like, do you, do you know of him? Do you know why he would go there?
As much as I hate to say it, James does have a point. We know to avoid the grasp, but if he was on the run from privateers or for any other reason, I can't fathom anybody willingly going into that besides being willing to chance death at the risk of escape. I mean, the Queen's executing pirates. She has been for years. So it's possible he was under threat. He also could have just gotten lost. I like to think it's not a rookie. I like to think it's a rookie mistake, and that he wouldn't. I mean, this guy's notorious. And the way he says it, it's kind of like he is. Like, this is, if were you more sailing oriented, you would probably know the name as well, just from the way he's talking about it.
Uh,
Yeah.
so Renori is gonna turn to Casper. So, if he's so notorious, what are the chances then that this is something of his own making to save his skin? What if it's not something that's happened to him, but something that he's making happen to other people?
I don't know. I will say, I mean, I don't know the man personally. I just know of him. Most pirates.
Oh, the ghost doesn't know about him
He's a
or
little
know him
before.
personally.
He's a little before my time. All right.
Oh, reiterating how young you are.
Listen. Yes, I am. However, it's not relevant. What I will say, of the pirates that I know that are magic users, his name does not often cross that list, if ever. I don't think I've ever heard magic and him be used together. Like, if he's doing this, he's got to be using someone or something. I mean, like, this isn't like him. I'll just put it like that.
Well, yeah, that's what we wizards are for.
Well, yeah, but I don't. That's what I'm saying. He's not a magic person.
Not something a strategic alliance is beyond, though. If he and a interested party wanted to be in control of the situation.
I will say, while it's unlikely, it wouldn't be impossible. He's known not to play well with others, but I wouldn't put it past him to change or do something for his own interest.
So I guess the real question is, if Thaddeus is a prisoner of Stormborn, is it even worth going after him? And Renori's asking, like, the whole group. She's, like, wanting to know from, hell, even if Tessa has something to say, but Tide and Raven and stuff, so.
We made a promise.
Promises can be broken.
I don't break my promises.
Good luck.
Tessa steps forward. Alright, we have some dialogue. I've got to say it's boring, but we have dialogue. So what I'm hearing is that your thing is falling through, and there's a lot of threads that aren't quite connecting. And she whistles, and it's this like fluttering little note, right? And you guys had seen this before. I forgot to mention it in the recap, but you had actually seen it with Wendy. That she had been speaking. Tide saw it specifically. She had been like playing with this bird, this green bird, and that same bird comes back at Tessa's call, and it lands on the end of her staff, and it really kind of tilts its head at her, and then tilts it again, and she literally speaks bird. per Tide, this isn't really weird to you. But everybody else, she's making noises human mouths aren't really supposed to make. Not mimicking birdsong, but making actual birdsong. And she turns to all of you after this quick conversation with this bird, and she goes, okay, so to synthesize, because I think I've put some things together here. You were supposed to, she's gesturing to all of you, you were supposed to find me as per request of, and she gestures upwards. And then also, you were supposed to find this Thaddeus person. I believe our interests may be aligned. And she looks at James. She goes, hold. And she goes over to James. She goes, Raven, may I?
What are you going to do?
I'll probably lock him in a hut with supervision. I have something important to tell you all if it helps, but I don't trust him.
Raven digs probably the hardest that she's done this entire time, but not enough to actually puncture any skin or anything.
He makes a noise like a balloon letting out air.
And she goes, shame. I really wanted him to give me any excuses to do this. She sheathes the sword.
Nice.
And offers him a hand up.
Mm-hmm. He takes it.
When she pulls him so that he gets really close to her face, and she's just like, that's a good boy, and just gives him to Tessa.
Okay. He sort of flushes. He flushes a little pink, and he passes him out to Tessa. He's sort of just kind of dumbfounded. And she grabs him by the bicep. She's like, "We are going to have some fun later." And she sort of like taps the staff in the ground as she's walking, and a few of the kids break off and follow her, and she takes him into one of the huts that's kind of at the back of the village, and some of the kids, they orient themselves around this, like one of the stakes that they had tied one of the pirates to, and they just pull it out of the ground, and like you had seen before, carry it over to this hut, and on the side of the hut where he is visible, but not close, like within earshot, they hammer this stake down, and Tessa shoves him on the ground so his back is up against the stake, and you see, like a snake, like kind of slithering out from the bush, one of these thick arm-wide vines comes crawling out and winds itself around him and ties tight, and there's like a nice little bow on front. And he like kind of just tilts his head back against the pike, and he's just like, "You are exhausting." And she just bonks him on the head with the staff. And she comes back to you all. She kind of gestures for you to come in a little bit closer, and you all kind of pack in closer. And she goes, "Well, I believe that what may have taken the man that you seek, I'm not familiar with him. It's also something that would make sense for Saloon to call on you to help me guard. This island," and Raven, she looks at you, you seem to have picked up a few things. But the state of this island is being caused by something in particular. And it's not just here that needs help. I was entrusted by Saloon to seek out rifts between the planes. I'm not sure. You know what? Actually, everybody roll me Arcana. Do Arcana for me.
19.
19.
24.
Those are all good numbers. just yeah. So Tessa's going to explain this to you and you're going to understand it. We'll just put it like that. And then if you have specific DM questions for me to clarify more, then I will do that. But your characters understand what she's saying. We'll just put it like that. So I was entrusted by Saloon to seek out rifts between the planes. As you know, the planes are on orbit. And occasionally they collide with ours, the material. And manifestations of these clashes of great power appear within our realm. And it's natural. This is supposed to happen. However, it's been happening too much lately. The planes will collide, and manifestations of that energy will appear on ours. And you'll see, and she sort of takes like, Tide, you do this, but she takes like a canteen of water that's at her hip, and you see her like do some shape water to kind of create visuals with what she's saying. So the water before you arranges itself into what looks like a gemstone. Not like a traditional carved gemstone, but like more like a shard. And she goes, these are what they look like. Not the small or delicate, but usually just these massive spikes of crystal coming out of the earth. And they're just raw planar energy. When you pull on a spell, it's diluted beyond recognition, even at its strongest level. This is dangerous. And Saloon asked me to hunt these manifestations down and eradicate them before they could fall into the wrong hands or perhaps claim lives. But when I was on my way to fulfill her quest, I got stuck here. So you being sent to me, it has to be providence. And that would coincide with what he's saying. I don't like to believe the weasel. I think some of the most fun I've ever had has been killing him. However, if he's talking about sudden storms at that level that are bringing back the dead, as your sailor is fond of saying, and she gestures at Casper, then that sounds like what we're looking for. Yes.
So to clarify,
Okay.
um,
Are you asking
the
her or are you asking me?
either.
Just, do you want to hear in character or do you want me to explain in plainer terms? That's all it is.
I'll ask Tessa.
Okay.
Raven will ask Tessa. So to clarify, these areas seem to be where planes of existence seem to be manifesting themselves and existing outside of time, even?
Correct. And she shifts this water that's floating before her into kind of a diagram. So you see discs that align themselves in order in a stack, okay? And these discs start tilting side to side, kind of like in flux. And then the discs start in a very complicated kind of orbit. Some are on a flat orbit, like how we would think of our planets orbiting. Some are going up and down, some are diagonal, but they're all on their own determined path that makes sense. They're just all very intertangled. So the planes move somewhat like this. And every once in a while, and as she says this, two of these water discs collide. Every once in a while they collide. And this is normal. It just causes unfathomable effects on whatever plane is hit, but it's normal. and every once in a while, and there's this main disc in the center that's a little bit bigger than the others, and she gestures to it as she speaks. The material plane is impacted by these collides. There are planes of pure elemental power, fire, earth, water, air, and then the Fire Nation attacked. All of these planes occasionally collide with the material. And when they do, that raw energy passes into our realm, and it has to manifest somehow. Because in those planes, it's just energy. But to us, it's a physical thing. And it manifests, and you have raw energy from beyond the bounds of this world sitting open for the taking. If that makes more sense. So it's not that this is irregular, it's just happening more than necessary, and Saloon worries if this keeps happening and these manifestations aren't disposed of, that they could tear this plane apart.
So Tide looks over at her Shapewater
Mm-hmm.
and kind of flicks his fingers, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots kind of come out, and he goes, "So what do we?" and pulls the little pieces of water out of the big planet that we are on. What do we do about this?
I like this. This is cute. So, all right. Well, and she reshapes her little diagram back into that shard that she initially had showed you. I was on the hunt before I ended up here, and I noticed that these manifestations usually crystallize, kind of quickly in large chunks, and they're rather easy to spot, I've noticed. And that's not really the issue. These crystals will crumble and disintegrate on their own. However, it's when people find them that's the issue, and that little crystal that she's created starts to rotate. See, for people like you have your magic stores you draw on in order to cast and create. And when you're tired, you rest and you recuperate that energy. It is within you. Well, these manifestations, when you touch them, they're a direct gateway to the other planes. And they allow anyone that may get their hands on them to augment their power beyond anything, beyond God status. And she kind of says that more quietly. Which is why they're so dangerous.
Renori's eyes light up a little bit.
Same. Ravens as well.
If someone were to touch one of these, they would essentially bond with it. And the endless stores of an entire plane would be at their fingertips. A human, or anyone of any race for that matter, just with boundless energy walking around. It shouldn't be.
The kind of energy that could bring people back from the dead, even.
That's thinking small. We're talking actively rewriting the course of history. We're talking sinking entire kingdoms into the ground as if they'd never been there. You could destroy Faerun as we know it. Perhaps even the material plane. These crystals are, and she sort of trails off.
So this might be a dumb question. This is Tide speaking.
Yeah.
This might be a dumb question, but theoretically, a non-magical person could become magical then, right?
For sure, but it's not without its costs.
Tide quickly looks around and then says, "Well, that doesn't really eliminate Stormborn anymore, does it?"
No, in fact, I'm quite suspicious. The thing about being exposed to this kind of energy is, without fail, it devastates the mind that gets a hold of it. I'm not...
You think...
Mm-hmm.
You think about it, it's a very interesting, for lack of a better word, coincidence that we're on an island where it seems there's a narrative loop Stormborn ship that was supposed to be down isn't down. There's these crystals that grant strange powers. I'm not sure where the dots connect, but they might.
She sort of nods and she says, "So you see what I'm referring to? I think our paths were meant to cross."
I think the question is, we're new to this island. Are we stuck in the loop now too?
I wish I could tell you. I mean, and she goes to say something and she seems to think better of it. Like you see her retract what she was gonna say. She goes, I'm not certain. I do think it is a good sign that you seem to recall yourselves and your intentions. However, I cannot say what the exposure over time will do.
Then we better get out of here really fucking fast.
I would agree. Yes. And she sort of looks over you guys again, and she casts a glance back at James, and she goes, we've, I don't know how long we've been in this loop, but I do know it's been long enough where any number of things could have happened with those crystals. So, I think I have something to show you. And, she starts... Actually, she's not going to do that yet. Take it back now, y'all. We're going to rewind the VHS a little bit. So she looks over at these crew members who are still kind of just standing here, by the way. They're not listening. Like, you guys are kind of out of earshot, but they're, like, standing around like they know they're being watched. And she looks over at them, and she looks over at James, and she goes, okay, well, Saloon entrusted you to find me, which obviously means you're meant to accompany me on this task, and I think you've beyond proven yourselves. So perhaps I could help you with yours? And she looks at Casper, and she sticks a hand out to shake, and she goes, I can offer my services and my pretty extensive knowledge of magic, I would say, in exchange for you helping me with what Saloon has granted you to do. Does that sound fair? And Casper is looking at you guys for permission before he shakes on this.
I feel like we don't have much of a choice. We followed Saloon's call. Do we really? And Renori, like, looks at Tide. Go back on our metaphorical promise to Saloon?
I mean, it seems like it's two birds with one stone. If we help her.
Well,
Who are we to deny adding a powerful ally?
I would prefer that you help me, but I will say your choice was always your own. No matter what, I am very devout to my goddess, and I will have no one say otherwise. And she fixes you with a very hard stare. However, I do have plenty of experience with fate, and it is what you make of it. Your decision is yours alone.
Raven, what do you think?
I think that beyond my normal rhetoric when it comes to the gods and the goddesses, I just want to make it clear that I am not doing this for good reasons, but I will help.
That's fair. So Casper kind of does a nod of confirmation, to all of you? We all... Okay. And with that, he shakes Tessa's hand. And she reaches out to shake everybody else's hand. Do you all do that?
Yeah,
Fine.
I'll do a handshake.
All right. Anybody not doing it, or are we all shaking hands?
Tide kind of misreads the situation and tries to hug and then realizes what's happening and then does the handshake.
Tessa sees you reconsider, and then when you go to do the handshake, she goes to do the hug. And she's like,
Uh,
all right. And okay, and then she looks at Raven. You do the handshake, I assume.
Yeah. There's a handshake. Does anything happen during the handshake
No,
on Tessa's end?
no.
Okay.
Just her hands are
Cool.
soft, and you notice.
Cool. Yeah, Raven blushes for the first time in this campaign, genuinely, at Tessa holding her hand, and she kind of quickly just, like, yanks it away, and it's just like, ew.
She smiles kindly at you. And with everybody having agreed to this, she looks at these crew members again and she goes, well, I suppose we're in between loops, and being in between loops means that we have quite a few things to deal with. And saying that, she looks directly at the crew members, and they all kind of shrink back a little bit. You all have brought out a better side of me, I suppose. You. And she gestures to the female that's at the group of them, and the head of them, and she steps forward, and she goes, and Tessa goes, I am giving you exactly one chance to survive. Because you know, from experience, what I would love to do to you. Give me any reason why I should let you live. And the female has nothing to say. In fact, she falls to her knees before Tessa, and the other crewmates do the same. And they lay down their weapons in the sand. And she goes, I cannot give you a reason. And Tessa looks over at Peter. Now, Peter, once James was kind of walked away from everybody else, sort of hung out in the bushes, like kind of like off to the side, like he's sort of sunk into the background. And at Tessa's look, he comes forward, and she steps aside, and she goes, you may take what is yours. And Peter starts gathering energy around his hands and rises into the air. And it does appear that he is going to harm them. Are you going to intervene?
Renori's gonna scream, "Stop!"
Okay, he floats, he just kind of rotates in place in the air, and he looks over at you. But he doesn't say anything, he's just staring at you.
Yeah. Isn't them knowing that they don't have a reason to offer a sign that things are changing? And instead of fighting or pleading like whimpering children, they've resigned themselves to knowing that this is fucked up. Don't they deserve a chance because of that? Don't you think that they're just as trapped by this hell as you are?
Okay, so, he sort of, the energy around his hands fades. And he doesn't sink back to the ground, but he looks over at James. And Renori, everybody sees this, but because in direct response to this interaction that's happening. There is no warning this time like there was with him gathering this energy. He fires a blast of golden and red energy at James. And this seems to happen in slow motion, I will say. But this energy goes over to him and it hits him. And there's sort of this flash of light, and he's still there. But Raven, you feel a tingle go up your spine because you recognize a sort of feeling lingering in the air. It's that same crackling energy that stole your years. You were not hit with it, but you recognize that feeling in the air. And when you all look over at James, he's still a distance away, but he does appear a little smaller. Not necessarily shorter, but thinner, scragglier, scrawny. And it appears that our weaselly little man is gone from about mid-20s, late 20s, to being around 18. And he is struggling very, very, aggressively against these vines that have been holding him to the stake. And they're actually looser now that it's not fitting him so tightly. And he calls out, please let them go. But Peter does not look intent on doing so. In fact, it looks like he's turning his anger towards James. So,
Sorry,
Raven
towards James.
Yeah.
Raven subtly uses Mage Hand to sort of tighten the ropes now back up.
All right.
Renori will continue talking to Peter and be like, I don't care about James. For the record,
That's fair.
He's not really shown what these 4 individuals have shown. I'm advocating on their behalf. He's still very clearly a slimy weasel and deserves anything you want to give him.
Okay, so Peter lowers to the ground, and because he turned to fire this blast, his back is towards you, but when he touches the ground, he does not stand, he falls to his knees, and you see his shoulders heaving. He's crying, and not necessarily sobbing, but he's shaking. And he's he's hunched over, and he's but there's this faint energy surrounding him as well.
Renori's gonna run over to him. As she gets closer, is it safe to get near him? Is the energy, menacing or hurtful?
You don't feel anything menacing. You notice a distinct presence in the air, but you don't feel as though you're in danger.
Okay, so then she'll run and, kneel right next to him and, put one arm around his shoulders to, kind of hold him as he's crying. And she'll say, I'm so sorry.
He buries his face in your neck, and he wraps his arms around you. And you are all distracted by a scream of pain. Blood-curdling, just pain. Like a dying animal, but you know it's human. And when you look over at James, he's got his head thrown back against this pike in agony. And you all see this because he's making a very big deal of it, for lack of better phrasing. He's wrenching against the vines, but in one way in particular, bringing his right hand like he's trying to get it free. And as he's wrestling this way and sort of sliding himself around this pike, you see a glint of metal against the ground. And what was once a flesh hand has turned to a hook. And we're going to take a very quick break. We'll be back in a few minutes. Cliffhangers. Everybody, please get some water, get a snack. Med check. If you haven't taken your meds today, take your meds today. Stretch, check your posture. We'll be back in a few minutes. Yeah. Hello, we're back. And I am not deafened. I did it! Yay! Okay, so we're back. A bit of a cliffhanger. Pretty sexy of me, just gotta say. Real quick before we jump back into it, I do want to plug, we do have a VOD channel. I am very slowly, because it takes literally 18 million years. I am putting the VODs on YouTube so that if you have a friend you want to get into this, you haven't caught up on it, you've missed episodes here and there, we got you. They're gonna be up pretty soon. I'm gonna put the link in chat. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. I hope that takes you to the... somebody tell me if that takes you to the channel. I copied it from Twitter. But yes.
Yeah, we're good.
It's all gonna be there. Yeah, no idea when uploads are gonna be, but all of my VODs will go there, not just this, but this is the main thing that's going there first. This is the priority. So check it out, tell your friends. Okay, to rehash what just happened. So Peter had he's angry, obviously, and he went to attack these crewmates who have surrendered, essentially. And Renori reminded him of the value of their lives and the bravery of to be able to look someone who wants to kill them in the eye and tell them that they have no reason to spare them. And he seemed to listen until he turned his rage upon James and struck him with some energy, and he fell to the floor kind of crying. And Renori went to comfort him, and he's just sobbing into her shoulder. And And you all heard James scream in this horrible, soul-shaking, just pain. And he looked to be in utter agony. And you realize, kind of, both in part with the way that the vine is sagging around him, and the screams, that he appears to be younger, smaller, scrawnier. And Raven specifically recognized the energy that did the same thing to her. If you'll recall, that Raven did also become younger. But the thing that's more intriguing about James, which is where we're picking up right now, is that as he's sort of writhing in his bonds, you see that his right hand has turned to a hook. And now I don't mean his hand went like Transformers, okay? It's like there was a flesh hand there, and there is now a hook there. And he is delirious in pain and screaming.
Is he still the age, like getting younger while this is happening, or it just happened?
It appears he became younger to a point. He looks to be about 18 now. It doesn't appear to keep going.
Okay.
Renori's gonna like look at James and then back at Peter as she's holding him as he's crying and ask Peter, did you do that to him? Or is that just happening?
He looks up at James. He goes, "It's what he deserves."
I mean, I'm not saying I'm mad at you. I'm just curious.
So Peter and James, this is something. Actually, you know what? Go ahead. So let's see if you pick. Let's see if you make connections. Go ahead and do insight for me.
Okay.
Let's see if we do some.
Is it all of us or just Renori?
You guys can do it as well. Renori, go ahead and do it with advantage because you're holding Peter. I just dropped the dice. Oh. Where is it? Where is it? Aha!
That's gonna be a 21.
Okay.
24.
Y'all are doing great today. We love this. Okay. So you're all going to be able to pick up on this. But I will say probably a little bit after Renori does, because Renori's actively looking and you guys are sort of spectating, and differences in perspective and whatnot. So Renori, I'm going to just describe it through Renori's perspective, but you all do see the same thing. Renori, you're noticing as Peter is here crying. His movements, like you're looking between him and James, right? And you notice that James is sort of very subtly, like it would be it's very hard to pick up on. It's just because you're perceptive. You do see that their movements seem to be similar. Like, Peter is sitting here, right, and his shoulders are shaking and he's sobbing, right? And then when he goes and he clutches to you tighter, that James sort of twists. And then when Peter kind of sits back from you and Peter is like out of it, by the way. Like there's no, like he's just, yeah, he's sort of caught in his own whirlwind of emotions right now. But you see, like when Peter leans back, devastated, you see James throw his head back into the pike. Like, and it's very subtle movements, but you just notice that a lot of these things are happening in pairs. And within very close succession. And you're able to put together, all of you are, that it appears there's something happening emotionally here. A sort of sinking situation. Mansu, the bits, thank you. Thank you so much for hanging out. What the heck? You're awesome. Okay. Sorry. You're the best. Mwah. Have a good night. So you see some sort of, like a sync is happening here.
So as Peter kind of like pulls away a little bit, Renori's gonna grab his face in her hands
Mm-hmm.
and like force him to make eye contact as much as to her ability, because obviously even when you grab someone's head you can be like
Yeah.
and she's gonna, like, in a very stern voice, but a loving stern voice as much as Renori
Possible,
is
right?
capable, just say, "Hey, Peter, it's okay, you're safe, we're here. You need to ground yourself and come back to this moment, or else the people that you do care about might get caught up in this."
Raven, as Peter is going through this, you don't feel so good, Mr. Stark. You feel a sort of, how do I describe this?
Can't make that reference.
Yes, I can. I can and I will.
I started crying immediately.
I can and I will, because I am still emotional over that. It's fine.
Okay, just keep going.
It's fine. It's fine. You feel this, I suppose pins and needles is the best way to put it, but it's not so much pain as just something is wrong. And it starts from the very base of your being and it starts spreading out through you. And it's, like I said, it's not pain, but the best way to phrase it is like you're not stable. Your body doesn't feel stable.
So it does make me feel weak.
Yeah. Weak.
Okay.
And like the physical manifestation of fading. If that were, I wish I had better words for that.
So who's like immediately to my sides?
Everybody's right. Renori and Peter are a little bit ahead of you. And then you have Tide. Tide is right there. Casper's right there. Tessa's right there as well. Like they're
So
the
she
closest.
kind of flails to whoever she ends up grabbing.
Mm-hmm.
Roll of the names in my head, it might be like Casper and Tide or like whatever.
Okay.
But she's just like, guys, and then she's like kind of collapsing underneath her own weight. But that's it.
Yeah. Tide. When you,
Yes.
because Raven is grabbing you, like this is like you jump a little bit, right? When Raven starts sinking, she looks off. She, looking at her, you see Raven as you met her at her age, but then you blink and you see Raven as you met her a few minutes ago, because now she's 19. And then you blink again and you see Raven and it looks like she's 12. And then you blink and you see Raven and it looks like she's 80.
Can I do I make the connection that what's happening to her is in relation to whatever's happening?
So 1 second. Raven, the things that Tide is seeing are happening to you. In stuttered, sort of flickering, like, passes of energy, you are fading through different ages. Some you have not lived, some you have not lived in a while. And it's not painful, but it's like everything you are being sapped. It's like it's just your existence is being sapped from you. And it's getting harder to breathe. Tide, you make that connection, yes.
Raven is just crying at this point, like, because she's getting younger, so she's getting sadder.
Yeah.
Not to make this super emo, but
It's D&D. It's always
Orphan on the Run childhood wasn't exactly a party. So yeah, she is just sobbing, and she's just uh like it's just like, please help me, like over and over and over again.
Tide will scream out to Renori and Peter, "You have to stop this right now!"
Okay.
And then kind of Renori turn around.
So before we get to Renori, because you don't know this is happening behind you, Casper. So Raven, it's hard to focus on anything. Like, this is just like your brain sort of in this panic loop. Casper sinks in front of you, and Tide, roll me a perception check.
Okay, pretty good. 18 plus 22.
Okay, so you're gonna see this. Raven, you see through sort of blurry, spotted eyes, Casper kneel before you. Okay, and he takes your face in his hands, and he looks at you very intently, and you feel grounded. And Tide, when you see Casper staring at her, you notice his eyes are glowing. At first, the sort of tealish colors seemed a bit eccentric, but he seems special, so it's like, of course, this guy would have special eyes. You know what I mean? But you're seeing it glowing now, and it doesn't really seem the case. Raven, you look into his eyes, you are grounded. And the feeling is still happening, but some of the panic is starting to ease. You feel it kind of subsiding, and Casper's voice kind of cuts through this fog that your brain has wrapped itself in, and he goes, "You need to breathe. We are not going to let you die."
Raven takes like some shuddering breaths. But it's like clearly still hard for her. Sorry.
We should have a rule where we're not allowed to look at chat. Like, if you're talking, you can't look at chat. Why do I do this, Maya? I did nothing. What do you mean?
I've started obeying that rule, by the way.
Yeah.
Because y'all wildin'. Anyway.
So she takes like shuddering breaths, but it's still like hard for her to like get a normal breath in.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure like people have had like huge crying fits where like they are trying to breathe but they really can't, but they're trying. Yes. And
Couldn't be me.
Okay, Kristen, sure.
Didn't just happen on camera.
And she's like clearly like trying to focus on Casper. And in that, like, if you've ever consoled a child crying and doing this, like, they kind of start to mimic your own breathing patterns. So Raven is trying to sync up her breathing with Casper's.
And he's doing like exaggerated, not like painful, but exaggerated breaths, like his shoulders or something, to try and get you to follow his rhythm.
And it's like slowly but surely working.
Okay.
And is helping her breathe.
Yeah, so to use boat metaphors, because it's relevant, it is like your brain is being thrown about in a storm upon waves that are impossibly high, and Casper is the lighthouse in the distance, and he is not making the storm go away by any means, but you have something to go towards, and you start going there. Renori, Tide yells at you to turn around. You turn around. You see this.
Yeah, so I'll see, like, what's happening, and then also Casper intervening, and then I'm gonna yell back at Tide, like, can't you tell that mom and dad are trying to take care of the situation? I'm over here with Peter for a reason. And then I'm gonna, like, direct my attention back to Peter and, like, start doing the exaggerated breathing in and out as well and be like, Peter, the people that you care about, the people that you are here for, and that you don't want to see hurt again. You need to ground yourself for them. You can do this. You're a good person. You're a good leader. I need you. They need you. Please come back.
So, detail I forgot to mention for Spoice, that as he's having this panic attack, that his eyes have turned sort of into these swirling discs of gold and red. And as you say that, you see it clear very slowly, and you see his scared eyes looking at you. And his eyes are bloodshot, and he's got the tears running down his face. But his breathing slowly starts to fall into step with yours. Raven, you see yourself flicker again through another cycle of ages, and then you settle back at 19. And that destabilizing feeling starts to calm. And Casper is still, like, breathing with you. And you also, James's screams die down into frenetic, whimpers. And Renori, when you look over at him, there is a pool of blood surrounding his legs and his hand.
Nah, I don't care.
I'd just say.
Is it a hand? Is it a hand at this point, or is it still? Is it a hook?
It's the hook. It's the hook.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So you see that there, and Peter looks around you, Renori, to look at him, and he looks back at you, and he looks back at what he's done. And he just stands, and he turns and he walks off into the jungle. He's not gonna, like, teleport away, by the way, like, he's walking, so that's, yeah. But that's where he's just wordlessly heading, into the jungle. Casper has, okay, not James, not important. Casper kind of helps you to your feet, Raven. And he's sort of like, are you okay?
Raven is still sobbing. She is still scared and confused, really, even though, like, physically she's stabilized and, like, the feeling has kind of gone away. And she kind of just, like, collapses and grabs onto Casper for more stability, and she's just kind of like silently crying. She's not, like, making much noise except, like, an occasional, like, shuddering breath. And she's just, like, grasping onto him.
Casper, without letting you go, Casper sort of widens his arms as if, like, offering a hug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She accepts that hug and kind of, like, like how you kind of, like, unconsciously sort of, like, sink to the ground.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, Renori, Peter is making his way downtown, walking fast.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'll follow him.
Okay.
Renori will follow him.
All right.
And give him room. Not she won't invade his space, but also make her presence known and just say, when you're ready to talk.
Okay. Um, he sort of. So we'll get to you guys in a second. Tide, what you doing?
Tide is gonna walk over to James and try to assist in stopping the blood that's kind of all over the place.
Okay, so when you get closer, you see that the blood is coming from the hook, and that it's dripping down him and onto the, excuse me, onto the floor where it's puddling, and he's got like sweat clinging to him and tears, and he looks up at you, and when you start approaching him, he goes, "No, no, please, please," and he's like pressing himself up against the pike.
Shut up! I'm trying to help you.
Um, he's still kind of murmuring, sadly, not sad, pathetically. That's a better word. And sort of pushing himself back from you. But he can't go anywhere. He's tied up.
So Tide kneels down and kind of looks at the hand and that the hook is on and wants to see if there's anything, like if it's stabilized or if there's anything, like if it's still bleeding and if there's anything he can do to stop the bleeding to prevent him from dying.
Okay, so roll me a medicine check, please.
Okay. Nat 20 plus 7 is 27.
Oh my god. Okay.
Hello,
Hello.
Dr. Tide.
Dr. Tide. Okay, we love to see art imitates life. So I'm just saying. So you take a good look at this hook. To put it in the simplest terms, but medically this could be dubious, I am not a doctor. This is a fantasy show that I do. So it's gonna happen. Essentially what looks like happened is that an instantaneous amputation. That's the best way to describe it. That wherever and whenever this hook came from, that it did not cleanly replace his hand, it took it off. And you do not see a hand, but you do understand from the blood that is likely what's happening, like that it's mimicking, somebody who has lost the hand and replaced it with the hook, but it's fresh. The blood does not appear to be stopping, but that hook looks like it's on there.
So I can't take the hook off.
It does not look like it comes off. It looks like it is fused to him.
Okay. Is there any skin that is exposed and currently bleeding, or is it all underneath the metal hook?
You see kind of around the edges of his wrist where the hook is fastened that there's some like minor lacerations, yeah.
Okay. I will do shape water to kind of clean it so I'm being as sterile as possible. And then take a little bit of bandage and just kind of wrap around the wrist area to try to stabilize it as much as possible. And Tide looks at him and says, "Keep your arm up. It'll stop the bleeding quicker."
Okay. He looks up at you, and he nods, and he still looks kind of delirious, and he kind of just puts his head back against the pike, and he's still kind of heaving. Yeah. Okay, so Renori, Peter has led you to this temple. So you pass back over that threshold, if you remember, where that, you had that feeling of just wrongness that enters you, and you feel that again. And Peter strides over it, you follow, and he goes and he sits on one of the kind of levels that are exposed to the upper air. And actually, no, he doesn't. He would go inside. So you see him beeline, and he goes into the door. And you follow in to see him sitting on the ground in front of that massive statue. and he's just sitting there. And did you say something to him? I feel like I missed it.
I had said when you're ready to talk, talk, and so as we go inside, I'll sit down next to him, crisscross applesauce.
Okay. So he after there's a bit of silence, and he after a little bit goes there's a tale that they told my people and me as a child, and I always thought it wasn't real because the tales that we're told as children never are, but it wasn't just a story, I suppose. And you see that energy start to come out from him again, and you don't feel any malicious intent. It's just kind of bubbling out like this. And as it does, some of the paintings and such that you had seen in here start to faintly glow, and then they start to move. And this room's already sort of lit by braziers, but it seems to get a little bit brighter. And what Peter is going to say is enacted by these paintings upon the wall. He goes, so there was once a boy, and this boy is everything that is good and true and right. And one day this boy will grow up to be king, and he will lead his people gloriously and kindly. And they are small people, but they are strong and they are honorable. And one day, this boy will have to confront that not all people are good. And as he looks into the mirror, he will see the evil within himself reflected. And that evil will take root. And it will grow into something horrible. And it will step out of the mirror. And it will grow with him. As he grows older, as he finds someone to love, as he bears children, and he takes the throne from his father, so will this manifestation. And it will follow him, and it will wait, and it will strike. And it will ruin what the boy had built. Because for everything that he is good, for everything, for all the honor that he has within him, this evil lurks within the other. And it will come to take what it feels it had been denied. I thought this was a story told to me by my mother. Just, don't steal sweets, Peter. Don't make wagons crash, Peter. Leave the poor butcher alone, Peter. But it's not that. And he turns to face you, Renori, and he goes, I wish I could tell you I was the boy in that story. But I fear I was looking out of the mirror the whole time.
So, you think James is the boy?
I know he is. We grew up together. He's my brother.
Well, whoever started off as the boy, I don't think that that's what matters as much as where you two are now. And I think it's pretty clear he's the shitty one.
Thank you. And he sort of huffs a little laugh. I'm a little afraid of what that means for me if you see such horror in the man that's supposed to be my shadow. But I will
Renori laughs.
I will take the compliment regardless.
Well, there might be some truth rooted in that story. But what matters most is the stories we decide to tell about ourselves. And you get to rewrite your own story if you want to, starting today moving forward.
I suppose you're right. Okay. and he stands, right, and these paintings sort of come to a halt. And I will point out that while the paintings were enacting what Peter was describing, that there was a sort of caricature of this king that stands for, like, the statue that's before you, um, represented in oranges and golds and reds, and another character, the, you suppose, mirror character, represented in black. Um, and you see these paintings come to a halt. And Peter stands and he offers you a hand, um, to help you up.
I mean, I'll take it.
Um, I thank you, thank you. I don't know if I'll be much help, but I suppose making a different choice may be the first step.
Different choices, good first step. Could help break the cycle, but for the record, kid, we've all got darkness inside of us. It's not something that anyone is immune to.
He sort of laughs a little bit, and goes, it's very entertaining that you call me kid. I am probably very old. Like, I am
Well,
likely older than you, but I appreciate it regardless.
listen, first of all, I'm a dark elf, so...
Touche.
But also, if you want me to not call you kid, quit looking like a kid. Like, come on.
He laughs, like, very openly. He goes, yeah, well, it upsets me most days, but sometimes I'm kind of fond of it. And he does a little cartwheel.
And then Renori laughs, and then she goes, "For the record, is this statue you?"
No. And he squints. He goes, great grandfather, great great grandfather. They show us pictures, and then we're supposed to remember these things. I don't remember.
So what? You're all like carbon copies of each other or something?
Never met anyone before me except my father, and I always got told I looked just like him.
Gotcha. Well, different choices usually start around the other people you have to make those choices about, so maybe we head back.
Okay. And, you two start walking back? Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Raven was hugs. Casper is hugging you.
What's hugs?
What's hugs? The Casper is hugging you, and that same sort of lighthouse in the storm feeling is still happening as this panic is kind of subsiding into just raw emotion from reopened wounds, and Casper is sort of just whispering soothing things to you. And can you roll me... What is this gonna be? Oh my gosh. We'll do a general wisdom. You know what? Do a wisdom save. Do a wisdom save. It sounds scary.
Okay.
It's fine.
My wisdom save is
Don't
my modifier is higher than my normal
panic.
1. 21.
Okay. Don't panic. It wasn't any... I cannot stress enough. Don't panic. As you're hugging him, that feeling shifts, and it's more like you are this constructed dam against waves that are sort of striking continuously, like these waves of emotion. And you feel one wave keep trying to get past the dam, and it's not necessarily an aggressive feeling. I have to stress this. Like, you don't feel like you're being attacked. You just feel something kind of sitting at the edge of your mind trying to get in. And Casper is kind of just rubbing your back and like murmuring soothing things to you, and you're holding him. Do you want to do anything, or are you still kind of out of commission?
Wait, sorry. So for clarification, there's this feeling that something is trying to intrude on my own
On your,
thoughts.
yeah, like something is trying to enter your mind. It doesn't feel malicious. It's just insistent.
And
If
it's coming from Casper.
you assume so.
Okay.
You
Um,
can willingly allow this to happen. I will say you're allowed to like willing creatures. You can willingly fail a save if you'd like. I know you just made the save, but you can willingly fail another save if you would like. But you feel this against you.
um, I think that I won't
Okay.
fail the save, but Raven is kind of done with like the shuddering
Mm-hmm.
part of like the cry attack. Um, and so she kind of like initiates like the letting go
Mm-hmm.
of this hug and like out of the embrace. Um, and she's but like mentally she's still like super fucked. And
Yeah.
so she kind of stays like seated and is kind of in that same position that Peter was in, like at the very beginning, where
Yeah.
her knees are like up to her chest and she's kind of like holding herself together.
Right.
And she's kind of just like staring at a point, kind of at the ground, and is just silent. She does not say anything.
Casper's standing by your side, like a respectful distance away, but close enough where you can see him. Um, Tied. So you looked after James's wound. He does mutter. It's very kind of hoarse and broken and hard to understand, but you do make out a thank you among the sort of like shallow breaths. And Tessa comes over to you and kneels by your side, looking at James, and she sees the hook, and she looks at James, and she sort of like brushes some of the hair out of his face and then presses two fingers to his temple. Um, and you see some of the color kind of return to his face, and you do notice that she starts taking the bandages off of him, and that there's no longer a wound there. So, um,
Like 47 did nothing for me at this.
it did. You stabilized him. That's worth it. Um, and she sort of looking at him, and she's not speaking to him, she's speaking to you, but she's like looking at him, and she goes, I had no idea that Peter was capable of something like this. I feel like this is my fault. I know it is. I know it's my fault. um i I think I really need your help, all of you, and I'm very grateful that despite my lack of transparency that you've agreed to help, because I cannot fathom that I allowed something like this to happen to a child. And she sort of pushes herself up, like using her staff to stand.
Mm.
And James appears to have fallen into a somewhat fitful sleep. Um, but yeah, he looks at least stable. He doesn't look like he's about to keel over. Renori, you and Peter make it back to the camp at like just after this happens. So you see Raven kind of on the ground, like kind of clutching herself, and Casper next to her. You see Tide and Tessa over by James. Um, and when you two stroll into camp, James's eyes snap open. Tide, you're standing right there. You see that his eyes have turned red. like the irises themselves have turned red. And he sort of gasps in a breath, like he's been hit with a defibrillator. And he looks around wildly and his eyes settle on Peter. And he's calling out to him very desperately, like, not angrily, just desperate. And Peter's just staring.
I'm gonna, like, look at Peter and say, this is the time for different choices. This is when you make them.
Right.
But it's up to you.
The boy king strides over to James.
Smoking.
Smoke. Little king.
He's so small.
Little king man.
A little king.
Little king. And he strides over to James, and immediately James like tries to, he's like worming in place, and he manages to slip his shoulder down just enough in a way that does not look comfortable to get his left hand kind of out of the vines a little bit. And Peter puts his hand in James's hand. And you don't know what's going on for the most part. This is a complete 180. Raven, I don't think you're really paying attention. It sounds like you're having a, yeah. So Tide, you don't, this isn't, dots are not connecting here, but you see this happening where, Peter takes James's hand, and, he kind of just looks at him. He goes, well, I suppose we break the cycle. And as he says that, something fun happens. The vines around him untie themselves, but they do it weird. Looks like it's literally happening in reverse, like in the way that they were tied. And they sort of fall down around James, and then it like back into the bush. And James kind of pushes himself up against this pike, like in the same kind of fear, like when you had approached him, and he still looks weak and kind of heaving. And Peter just kind of hugs him. So complete, like, this is like, what the hell?
I think at this point, Tide is not attacking, but kind of preparing, what is it? Frostbite? Yeah, Frostbite. Not for James's sake, but for Raven's, since he saw what happened last time. And based off of the fact that it seemed like he wasn't doing anything to cause time after the initial blasting, he is very anxious about what's about to happen, because he obviously has no idea what's happened with Renori or the story or anything, but he's not the brightest in general, and not the brightest with spells, so he's just like, I don't trust anyone right now.
That's fair. With his back to you, Tide, but clearly addressing you, he goes, you can relax. We're fine.
Who said, does James say that?
Peter says this.
Peter says that. I'm gonna say Tide doesn't relax.
That's fair. Tide has no reason to relax. Every time Tide relaxes, things happen. So I don't blame him.
So Renori witnessing that and truthfully leaving Tide to his own devices, because even though, like, in Renori's mind, okay, wait a minute, let me finish explaining before you give me that look. In Renori's mind, even though Tide doesn't know what's going on, she trusts his judgment, and so she's like, he'll figure it out. Like, I don't need to go over there and, like, give him a summary of everything I know. So she's gonna walk over to Raven and like kneel in front of her and like put her elbows on her knees and rest her head like on her hands and be like, so you two have a little moment there, how you doing? And like she's trying to like lighten the mood, like she's bringing like this warmth and like it's not catty, it's like I'm here, you're not alone, and she's trying to distract from
This.
the terribleness of it all by like joking around and being like a little sassy.
Raven just sort of sniffles, and to be honest, she like barely absorbed that Renori had even said anything, let alone that it was Renori specifically that's in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
She's just super mentally checked out. So she doesn't react.
Okay, so Renori will then like move to just like sit next to Raven
Okay.
and like just like run her fingers through Raven's hair like calmly, just trying to soothe her.
Bonding. Okay. So at this point, so Tide, this is for you mostly. So Peter has taken James in a hug. He's like 13, James is like 18. There's a significant height difference happening. And James sort of you see like you see him kind of startled like at Peter even approaching him, and that same sort of caged animal fear come back. And when Peter hugs him, you see him start crying and bend over and take Peter in his arms. And Tide, can you roll me a wisdom saving throw, please?
I sure can.
Yeah.
Oh, these are just not these. Dawn's like, don't worry, it's just a wisdom saving throw, and then someone turns 19.
That's what, that's fair.
Well, you don't really have to worry about it because I got a 19, and then plus 7 is 26.
Yeah. Okay. So you notice that energy is kind of coming off of Peter. Now, I will say distinctly, as Renori keeps experiencing, you don't feel anything malicious. You just feel the presence of this energy. And it's coming off of Peter. Nobody's like Tessa's next to you, and though she does seem a little bit startled seeing it appear around Peter in this sort of bubble, and then it expands to include James as well. It doesn't. Nobody appears to be panicking, so I will say that. But you do feel intent, kind of prodding at your mind, not necessarily aggressively, but just a constant presence on the very like peripheral of your mind, like something not necessarily looking to make its way in, but if your mind wasn't, if you didn't have a wall up, let's say it like that it would be in, and you don't quite know what it is, but you just feel it.
Is it like do I feel like it's trying to read my mind, or it's just like information to get into my mind?
You don't know, you just feel something. Okay. It's just like the vibe is not aggression or something like to vibe check this. Yes. It's not aggression, it's not something like malicious. You just feel a presence at the periphery of your mind.
Okay.
And so your mind is guarded. It does not make its way in. I will remind you, like I did with Sarah, that if you would like to willingly fail a save, you always may. You just have to tell me. But you by no means do you have to take that as an invitation. If you don't want to, you don't have to. I'm just letting you know you have that option. But yeah, you feel this presence just kind of sitting just like right here. And you see this energy sort of expanding out from Peter. It does not pass, like it doesn't touch you and Tessa, and it doesn't get past a certain point where it would. But it's just kind of there and swirling around them. Tessa puts a hand on your shoulder, and she gives you a warm, kind of like an apologetic smile. And she goes, I do want to thank you for everything that you've done today. I owe your companions a thank you as well. I apologize for my sort of harsh demeanor when we first met. I have to be guarded. I have a lot to care about here. And she sort of gestures around.
I start blushing. Tide touches her hand that's on his shoulder and says, and looks at her and says, "You were right to be guarded. We don't even know half of what's going on right
now." She sort of like not jumps, but like straightens up a little bit when you touch her hand. And she goes, "Oh yeah, that tends to be sort of the situation around here at all times, but I appreciate you understanding regardless." So Tessa kind of makes her way over to Renori, Raven, Casper, and these other crewmates are still kind of around. They're sort of checking on each other. They don't, like, before they were looking around like, can we maybe make an escape? We're kind of outnumbered, like, just watching what's going down. But now they're checking on each other, and they're looking over at James, trying to, from a distance, see kind of if he's okay. Like, you can see them kind of scoping out what's happening over there. But Tessa comes over, and Raven, she kneels in front of you, and she holds out her hands, and I know you're not super here, but this is in your plain view. Renori, you as well.
Yeah, Renori is gonna just, like, be giving her a death glare, like, clearly, like, saying, like, this is one of my people. If you fuck with her, you fuck with me. Even though she knows she should probably be trusting this process, she's still just like...
That's fair. You shoot Tessa this death glare, and at first she isn't looking at you, but she probably feels your eyes boring into the side of her head, and she looks up at you, and she does not flinch. And she holds your stare for a very long moment before returning her gaze kind of softly to Raven. And
me, like, I want to roll intimidation,
if
but
you
no,
want
I don't.
to, you can. I'm not going to stop you.
I really don't. Okay. I don't want
to. So she holds out her hands, and I'm gonna look exactly at what I wrote down here before I say words. Yeah. Okay, so she holds out her hands, okay? And you see golden light gather in her palms, and it's sort of liquid. It rises up from the surface of her hands and pools, kind of like mercury would, in the creases of her palms, and then spreads out between her hands as they sit like this. And you see droplets sort of rise up from the surface of this little puzzle in her hands. And Raven, these droplets float over to you, and they sink down into your arms. Excuse me. And you feel calm. It does not fix what just happened. The emotions are distinctly there, but it is soothing. And without... You don't need to call on knowledge from beyond. Like, you are very familiar, let's say, with this experience because it matches the descriptions of what divine intervention should feel like. You just feel this wordless peace wash over you, and your emotions are sort of soothed, and you feel yourself kind of come back into the present. So Renori, you do see Raven look a little bit more alive, for lack of better phrasing.
I'm still glaring.
That's fair. Tessa looks at you, Raven. She goes, "Are you feeling a little better?"
Raven takes a deep breath, but has this, like, tense now, feeling like understanding that this had to do with some sort of like divine situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sort of gives a resentful, yeah, thanks, and gets up
Mm-hmm.
without really saying anything uh, else to Tessa, and offers a hand to Renori to get up as well.
Yeah, Renori will take it.
Um, and then she'll kind of want to, like, she takes a step away from Tessa,
Okay,
like back from her.
that's fair. Tessa doesn't seem to react to that necessarily.
Tide looks over, sees Raven is like physically better, but can tell it's not where it usually is, and kind of lighthearted, um, like jokestery, and he just goes, "Hey Raven, watch this!" And he does shape water, takes some of the water out of his canteen,
I love Tide.
and nut checks one of the pirates on the other side, and you can see him like kind of like, oh,
Okay. So this. Okay. Hold on. We gotta back up real quick. So, this group of pirates has been talking and checking on each other, right? Okay. And as they're having this moment, right? Like, this is within plain view. You'd see these other pirates are kind of, I don't want to say laughing, and certainly not at you. Like they're talking to each other, right? Like they're interacting as a group of people who know each other well would put it like that, right? And you just and one of the guys that's kind of, he's facing you, but he doesn't see it. He's just in the middle of saying something, like you see his lips moving, and then he just and the two other guys next to him jump, and the woman kind of turns so she can look at you in alarm, like just at your group of people, and she's kind of looking around, like trying to figure out what did that. The other two guys start to snicker.
Raven smiles. She doesn't really like actually. It's not very big or anything, and she doesn't laugh, but it definitely lightened her spirits. And this is gonna be the weirdest roundabout explanation of this, but in the first episode of Orin High School Host Club, how the realization that Haruhi is actually a girl is portrayed visually with like light bulbs. So like if there's like levels of trust that Raven has sort of like built up around her as walls to protect herself, just like this entire real like interactions that have been happening between Casper, Renori, and Tide, and I'll just throw Faustus in there for ease. Like one of the light bulbs sort of have gone off, as in like they've leveled up in like the trust that Raven has in them. So yeah,
The secret
that's
stat
kind
is
of like
Raven's
Beep,
trust.
beep, beep,
yes,
beep, 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 beep.
yes, that is the secret stat.
The secret stat is Raven's trust. So cool. Okay, so I have a question, because I don't process audio and I don't know if you said it, but did Casper level up in Raven's trust? I'm just curious.
Yeah, yeah, like in a way that it's just like she has like a deeper level of respect for him,
Okay.
but she's also still like hesitant in the back of her mind because of the whole goblin situation that happened, God, like 3 episodes ago.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I was just asking. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tessa looks at you all, and she seems troubled. And she goes, I hate to ask more of you all, especially considering what has just occurred. But then she looks up at the sky, and you do notice that the sun is starting to dip towards the horizon. Not necessarily below it. It's probably about 4 o'clock ish, like we're starting to get towards evening. Um, I if we had time, I would give you time, but we don't. Uh, I I have done this before. Not like this, not these circumstances, but I've tried to break the cycle before. And if you don't start soon enough, if you get caught in that third day and you reset, it all resets. So we have to get moving. Um,
Is this still the first day
it
that we've
is.
been here?
It
Okay.
is the first day. So she sort of looks back at the jungle where you can see the top of the temple peeking up above the trees. Um, there there's something within the temple that I believe is connecting to my mission, for lack of a better word, with Saloon. Um, However, I cannot go down there. I've tried. I've tried everything. But maybe you can.
Renori like does a fake like laugh and it's like, what? Is there like a dragon in the basement or something?
I don't know.
Oh.
When we first got here, I don't know how long ago that was, but I'm estimating several years by now. More than that, probably. I tried everything to get down there. I blew holes in the floor, ripped the temple out of the ground, dug until my hands bled. I cannot go down there. And I don't know why. For all intents and purposes, it should be me going down there, but I can't. So, if Saloon has chosen you, and you have earned my trust, you certainly have, you have to.
Well, it doesn't sound like we have any other better options right now.
That's just the motto of this campaign. We don't have any other choice. Let's do it.
Tide asks, or kind of, it's a statement and an ask, where he's just like, how the hell are we going to get back to our ship?
Where'd you park?
Will this item help?
Do you know where you parked?
In a giant cave that
We came
popped
down
up
this
out of
huge slide.
nowhere.
I don't know where.
She looks at James, and then she looks out at the horizon. You forgot to mention this in the recap again. Small details slip through the cracks always. That you could see the ship that these other pirates came from on the horizon.
Yeah.
So that black ship is sitting on the horizon. So she looks out at that, and then she kind of casts, like she does like a Terminator scan, like she goes this way. And she goes, well, I could always walk you. But it won't do you any good to get back and get reset.
Yeah, I think the ship thing is a subset after trying to reset all of this. Or stop it from resetting, I guess. And it sounds like our closest lead is the basement.
I will say that I don't believe anyone who hasn't set foot here is in danger. So long as your crew remained on the ship, they should be alright. I think.
I hope they did. And Renori, like, looks at Casper like, your idiots wouldn't have followed us, right? Like, trying to, like, telepathically be like,
Casper nods, like, yeah, we're fine. And then he goes,
Renori, like, gives him, like a look in response to that. But
it's fine. It's probably fine. So Yeah. Yeah. We have the basement. How are we feeling about the basement?
I think we should go.
Any objections to the basement?
Basement's always a bad idea, right? But it sounds like lots of fun, Renori says.
Raven is just kind of on team. I want to get the fuck out of here as fast as possible, and if
fair.
that means you have to go to the basement first, then that is fine with her.
Casper shrugs. Let's go. It's, burning daylight as it is. And he sort of gestures at the building, and he starts walking, and Tessa follows him. You are all following, I assume?
Yeah, Renori follows without a second thought.
Okay. You all are at the temple. You pass over that same threshold of energy again. You feel that uncomfortable feeling settle into you. You head straight inside. Peter also tags along. And at the very rear, so does James. He's sort of hanging behind, like, it's your group, and then Peter and James are a little bit further behind. Like, Peter's keeping up with you at a respectful distance, and James is hanging a very respectful distance away from you guys.
What's the vibe between, like, Peter and James now? Are they, like, acting like brothers? Are they, like, friendly?
Roll insight.
Okay, hang on.
You guys have been doing great this whole time. It's fine.
You're not... Okay, 19.
Nice. Okay, so you do see they're talking. They have been talking. And you see that it's tense. You can just tell by the body language it's sort of tense, but friendly. You do hear a laugh every once in a while, not super loud, but like a quiet, like little giggle every once in a while. Things aren't perfect, but it doesn't seem murderous. Put it like that. So you all arrive at the temple, head promptly inside, I assume. Yes, right? Okay.
Sorry, I have another question for clarity. Raven in Casper, I guess, and I have no context yet about their relationship, right?
Not at all. You just see this happening. And Casper, you do notice Casper is every once in a while casting, like, glares backwards at James. And Tide, you're kind of... So it's like Casper is kind of at the front, right? So he'll glare back every once in a while so you see it. And then you're able to also see James kind of, whenever he meets Casper's eyes, just shudder. Full body. As they're walking.
So, Renori seeing Casper being beyond extra about this, she's going to whisper, and whisper, meaning that anyone within earshot can hear, because she's whispering, it's like a stage whisper. So she's like, Casper, they're brothers.
How many of us can hear that, though?
Whoever is close enough.
Tide, you would all hear it. The three of you would hear it.
Okay.
She's not actually being quiet about it necessarily, but also not loud enough that the furthest people could hear.
Yeah, it's Peter and James who aren't going to catch up, but you guys all hear it. And Casper kind of glares more and more pinchy, like, that it doesn't. Yeah, you have not brought him any peace.
I figured I wouldn't, but it was worth a shot.
Yes.
I would say Tide is kind of similar, where like he a week ago, whenever this campaign started, this world, he would have been like freaked out about that. But at this point, he's become so jaded to the weird shit that's happening all around him that he's like, of course they are, but it doesn't do anything for him either, and relaxing him or making him feel more comfortable with the fact that they're both coming.
so jaded so soon, but we have a whole campaign to do.
Yeah, he's shady, but he's getting it quickly.
All right, nice. There's so much happening all of the time. So you all make your way into this temple. And same scene. But you do notice that you pile in, and your focus is kind of on the statue and the ladder going down at the base of it, and the keyholes. Like I had, so we had the 50-foot tall statue of this king, with red hair.
Great grandfather, second removed from
Probably. And he's holding up a scepter that is missing the end of it. And you see paintings all along the walls depicting some sort of scene, but most of them are very faded and it's hard to make out. But you notice that as Peter and James kind of bring up the rear into this temple, it gets brighter. The torches burn a little bit brighter, and you see that these paintings sort of gain vigor, like the colors and stuff that were faded come back, and you're able to make out the images more clearly. And it looks like some sort of folk story, but the pictures are kind of hard to understand on their own. But can you both roll me perception, Raven and Tide?
There's the bad roll.
There it is.
10.
Alright, that's not gonna...
Pretty pictures!
14.
Okay. Raven, you do notice specifically... Raven's gonna see it. Tide, you see it, but you just don't process it. We'll put it like that. It's not that you don't see something, you're just not processing the detail of it. Raven, you're looking and you manage to catch this detail, that the paintings do depict a figure that looks like the king in front of you, which you know is Peter. But you also see a darker figure and all black that keeps recurring through all of these paintings. And it just stands out to you.
Can we just say Tide thinks it's his shadow? Like it's a painting of a shadow?
Sure.
Like everybody else has?
Yeah, sure. So yes, you see this statue, and then there's the ladder at the base of it, and Tessa gestures towards it, and she says, this is all I can tell you, because it's all I know. That once you go down there, you are likely going to be without whatever... And she does a hand wave, and some shape water happens. Magic of various kinds. It's protected, and very well protected. Can't tell you much else. Whatever is down there...
It's a good thing all of us are magic based.
Right? Whatever is down there, you can be
Faustus, no!
Oh, poor Faustus. Faustus is here, by the way. I do want to,
I know! No, I know. I know. Nori's gonna raise her hand and be like, wait, okay, you're sending a wizard down to where I can't magic?
Tessa looks very irritated. Hold on 1 second. Hold on, I just want to see.
Tessa's irritated! Renori's irritated!
Hold on. Okay, no, this isn't... Okay,
got daggers.
She looks very irritated.
A dagger.
And she goes, if I could, I would go down there with you. But that's obviously not the case. And you're the ones who are supposed to do this, according to Saloon. So I'm trying my best to help you.
Raven, mutters under her breath, but it's really only for herself, so no one really makes out what she says. But she's just like gods haven't been wrong before.
So Tessa gestures at this and she says, I will stay here. If I somehow find a way through, then great, but I will be here and I will wait. And I pray that you come back to me in one piece.
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
I do believe in you. I'm just seen a lot of bloodshed for a very long time.
Again, thanks for the vote of confidence.
Does Raven still have the sword from earlier,
Yeah,
or
no one
has
ever took that from you. Like that's
cool?
yeah.
Nice.
Tide is fully not paying attention to anything. He is staring at the statue, and
Are you
like in
gonna
a
try and
escape
connect some
room,
dots?
yeah, trying to figure out what's missing from it. But he has, I mean, he has no idea. But he's just like, it. It's like an escape room where like you're so convinced something is part of the puzzle,
Yes.
and even if it's not, it doesn't matter to you. You just want to figure out what's going
That
on,
one thing.
and he's just staring at it, and so he misses the entire magic thing. He misses the tension between Renori
I love
and
him.
Tessa.
I love him
He's
so much.
not. So he's gonna go in not knowing shit
Okay.
unless somebody tells him again. But
Perfect.
he's just like, guys, there's something missing here. I don't know what it is, but that's the clue.
I love Tide so much. Tessa looks up, and she looks at you, and she looks up, and she sighs very deeply, and she goes, when you've completed the, I will be here. I have something to give you, but I can only give it to you once you've completed this. I've been instructed to do so by Saloon. And she just seems kind of deflated and defeated.
Raven rolls her eyes.
Okay, that's fair.
Renori's gonna just like also roll her eyes. Right,
Can we? Sorry, go ahead.
Right, well, death is kind of my thing, so we might as well walk right on towards it instead of sitting here hashing out the details over and over again.
Mm.
Are there any weapons around us that we could take with us into the basement or whatever?
You don't see any weapons around you right now? No.
No.
Okay, so are we going down?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So you all start heading in.
Oh wait, are there torches around
There
or
are.
something?
There are torches
Can I
on the
grab
walls.
one of them?
You may.
Cool.
You take a torch.
I am not.
That's
I
fair.
am not.
Yeah, Tide doesn't like fire, so he's not going.
You take a torch, Raven. You've acquired a torch.
I'm like, I got dark vision and light goes ow, so.
That's fair. Before you do go down.
Oh yeah, Raven does have dark vision. She doesn't grab the torch. She wouldn't think to do it.
You don't
Now
grab the
that I
torch.
think about it, that would be out of character.
Okay, so before you go down though, I do want to say, it'd be before this conversation with Tessa, that you do notice that the room starts to get a little bit brighter when Peter and James follow you in, and the paintings and all of that, right? And Peter and James are saying stuff to each other, like they're talking, right? They're talking within their own earshot, and Peter laughs rather loudly, and you see a swirl of kind of golden energy swirl up and like a little firework happen above you. And that statue that's in front of you sort of, it doesn't glow because that's dramatic, but it just kind of seems to take on more light, like the torches in the room reflect off of it more. And Peter like kind of looks like a little bit embarrassed when that happens. And then, conversation with Tessa. I just wanted to put that in there because I had forgotten to say that. Okay. We're going down. You all...
Who's going with us? Are Peter and James coming?
They do not appear to be following you.
Okay.
Casper is with you, though. So, You all descend this ladder into a room. And this room is about like a large bedroom. And so in this room, one second, I like scrolled a little too far. Okay, so in this room, there is a wave of energy that sort of passes over you again, and you recognize the same sort of presence that was surrounding the temple. You all instantly feel weaker, and you assume that is the effect that Tessa warned you about. The walls in here are made of a reflective stone that seems so clear that you can see your own reflection in it. And you see like a pedestal made of this stone, and on it, a large looking glass is like fixed to this pedestal. So like think like a magnifying glass, but it's kind of like bigger. And it's in like a gold frame, and it seems like bolted down to this thing. And you all kind of come down into this room, and you're standing here, right? And let me rephrase my description of the looking glass. It's larger, kind of like a window in a golden frame with glass sitting in it. It's decently large, I think like the size of a TV. And through it, you see a key floating in the air. Now, this key is very high up. Too high to just grab. I would put it like that. And on the ground, you see 3 cubes of the same stone that's sort of about. And they're all of equal size, sitting in a row next to the pedestal. And that's all that appears to be in this room.
So, can we like move the cubes?
You can try if you want, yeah.
Yeah, actually no. Raven probably would still be a little reeling from everything. Raven will kind of just like walk and peruse and look around the room.
Okay. From every angle, seems to be it. You do notice once you pass around this looking glass, you don't see the key that you do see through the glass. And that just seems to be all that's in the room, is this pedestal with the key that's apparently only on one side, and then you see these 3 cubes.
Renori's gonna walk up to the looking glass and like touch it. Like see if if like it's a stop or if like it goes through at all.
It's a stop. When your fingers come into contact with the glass, there's like a scratching sound. Mm-hmm. And you look at the frame of this thing, and an engraving appears, and it says, "Keep things in perspective."
Keep things in perspective.
I love the note taking.
You said it's a mirror, right?
Oh, we have notes. Okay, it's a looking glass. So
This is just today's session.
Oh my god.
Not the looking glass on the walls.
The wall is just like it's reflective stone. Yeah, so you see yourself pretty clearly in it.
So Tide is going to be looking at himself in the mirror, because if you recall from when we jumped off the ship, Tide is currently not wearing a shirt. So he's kind of like he's kind of like going like this. He's like, man, I gotta lay off that pasta. like it's just for a second, and then he like kind of turns around and sees that other people are doing things, and is like, oh shit.
I am remembering that I don't remember if Casper was also wearing his shirt.
He put it back on.
He did put it back on.
I took my shirt off.
Faustus is also shirtless.
Faustus was
from memory.
Faustus who was shirtless.
Yeah, Faustus Tide is shirtless.
That's what it was.
He put it back on. Tide did not put it on.
Faustus put his back on too, I think.
Yeah.
So Tide just walking around.
Tide doesn't have a shirt. He's just walking around.
That's fair.
Yeah. Raven definitely left her robe thing on the beach where they
that
first
rock.
came in. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair. Okay, so you
He is thinking now, I hope I can get that back.
right. Yeah, so you have this engraving that is now appeared on this looking glass.
Okay. So then Renori will like go over to the cubes.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you say they were exactly?
They're just cubes made of the same stone that the walls and the pedestal appear to be made of. They're about shin height, and they're all equal size.
So she'll like try to put a foot on one.
It's a rock. You put a foot on it.
Okay, nothing happens.
Nope. Your foot touches it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Y'all are so scared. Like, you don't trust the DM.
And so
Not anymore.
So
that's fair.
Renori's gonna try to cast a spell. A cantrip to be specific.
You feel like
yeah.
No.
Nothing happens.
The energy doesn't even come to you to leave you.
Damn. Fuck. Okay.
So Tide will walk over to the stones. So when they walk in, can they all see at this point?
What do you? I'm sorry, you cut out for me.
When the three of us, or the four of us, all walked in, can we immediately see the key in front of us?
Yeah, you can see the key because so when you come down the ladder, the looking glass is right here. So as soon as you turn around, you see the key through it.
So Tide sees what Renori is doing, that she tested and they are solid, and he is going to try to move the stones so it's like a staircase almost, so it's like one and then two of the others.
Okay. So Raven, because you're still kind of by the ladder, so you're by the ladder, and you're able to see through the looking glass. You see Tide start moving the stones, and as he gets farther away from kind of this looking glass, he gets smaller. Like, it's really weird to watch. Like, he's walking, and you like can even lean around this thing and see him, like he's right there. But when he's in the glass, it looks like he's a long distance away. And he puts this stone down. He's kind of tiny. And Tidy put the rock down. Nothing happens. He put the rock down. And you start building. You build your little staircase. Raven, you see him build a tiny staircase.
But I can't see the key at this point, right?
Because
I'm on the other side. Hey Raven, can you look and tell me where the key is compared to these steps?
So I'm gonna describe it for you so you can tell him. So the key is like, how can I do this in terms that are visual?
I could just be like, I can just like instruct him, and that'll be a lot easier to go through.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, Raven definitely goes and like looks in the mirror and helps him adjust it so it's like more lined up.
Okay, we're actually gonna go through this because this is teamwork. So
okay.
The key is in the mirror. It's not a mirror. It's like a looking glass. So, the key appears to be about 10 feet from the glass. It looks pretty, not 10 feet. Sorry. It's like Tide is one end point, the looking glass is another, and the key is in the center. So Tide is like half of like he's too far. And you see, so the key is like in where the center of the room would be. And Tide has gone too far. So.
Are you gonna tell me that, Raven?
Yeah. Sorry, I like spaced out for a second.
You're fine. You're fine.
So he went too far, like past it?
Yeah.
Tide, move back a little bit. You went too far.
Both
Okay.
Renori and I are horrible at puzzles.
Yes, you are.
So
Thanks.
Tide first starts moving backwards, further away from the key because he hears move back. But then he says, then you said something about like come closer. So then he's like, oh, and then he'll start to push the 2 blocks that are stacked on top of each other back towards the looking glass, and we'll just say, "Tell me when."
You just tell him when.
When?
Yeah. So the Raven tells you to stop. About the middle of the room. Raven, through the glass, you see a perfectly sized staircase. And
Woo.
Tide.
Yes.
So something weird happens. The cubes align, right? And you look back at Raven for confirmation, and then you turn back and the cubes are still the same size, like, but they feel different. It's very hard to place. Like, you just looking at them, you know they look the same, but you feel like something is just different. Raven, you see Tide standing in front of a perfectly sized staircase up to this key.
I think you can just climb it and get the key now.
Okay. Tide is going to step up onto the first rock.
Okay. Your perspective shifts. You step on this first rock, right? And it's your shin height. But when you look down, you are considerably more than shin height above the ground.
Okay.
And you take the next step, I assume. You like keep going.
Well,
Keep
I'll take
going.
a second to like breathe and be like, "Oh man."
You
And
got
then
this.
he'll take the next step up.
Okay. You take the next step, and you are now double that height. I want to say maybe about 20 feet or so in the air.
Okay.
You're doing great, sweetie.
But you still feel like you're just stepping on rocks that are shin height. It's a very disorienting experience.
Can I ask from like Renori's perspective what the hell is going on?
Renori,
Like, what does it look like to me?
Are you looking through the glass or are you looking around it?
Well, I was right next to the cubes.
That's true.
But
So you're
before,
behind that.
Yeah.
so I'm like behind.
It's confusing to process. You see Tide.
Yeah, that's been the situation from the beginning.
Yeah. You see Tide walking on cubes that are shin height.
Okay.
And he kind of looks like he's treadmilling in place a little bit.
Okay.
Tide, you get a distinct feeling, like a very sharp ping of being unstable balance-wise.
Okay.
But the key is very close. Not quite arm's reach yet, but close.
Can I see the key at this point or no?
You can see the key.
Okay. And how far in front of me is it?
Probably like 5 feet. So not arm's length.
More than arms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Renori's just gonna shout, "Keep things in perspective!"
That doesn't mean anything to Tide.
Renori shouts though, and you feel the cubes wobble beneath you.
Oh god!
And Tide, when you look at them, so you had this experience of looking at things that are distinctly not sized to the way you're moving right now, right? But it gets worse, and you feel like you are higher. Raven, through the looking glass, you see the cubes, like, their size shifts suddenly. He's not going anywhere, and the key does not move. But they're like in flux, like they're shifting sizes. And Tide, you feel like you're standing on an earthquake.
Great.
Yeah. they're not happy. The cubes are not happy with you. So can you roll me an acrobatics check to not fall?
Okay, yeah. So remember how we were doing really well at the beginning?
Oh my gosh.
It's a 7.
Cool. So you guys see Tide. These cubes start to, and Tide, they're shifting beneath you, and you go to take your step to kind of balance yourself out, and you slip, and you fall off of this tower, and
Cool.
it is quite the distance. So much so that you take 2 bludgeoning damage as you fall from this tower and smack down into the ground. Raven, as soon as Tide's off of these cubes, they look to go back to shin height.
Do they look like shin height to me?
To you, they've always looked shin height.
Okay.
It's a very confusing visual, but it's supposed to be, because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Renori's gonna, like, run over and, like, help Tide stand back up.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, dust him off a little bit, and then be like, so, do you want me to try the thing you were doing? I don't really know what you were doing, but I can give it a try.
Casper pipes up, and he goes, I'll do it. I'm good at this. Whatever was just happening.
Okay. You're definitely more acrobatic than me.
I tend not to die falling off of high things, so I guess this is my skill set.
I've noticed.
Raven turns around, like actually looking away from the looking glass for the first time since like this has happened, and just pipes up that reminder. Renori did save your ass when you fell off the crow's nest.
I know.
Yeah. Because so like
it was a flub in a very long-standing career. I was startled. Thank you.
What?
To be fair, you missed the part where he showed off later because you went somewhere else. So anyway, and like Renori like gets like flustered realizing she's like admitting the extent of time that she's spent with Casper and is just like curls in on herself a little bit.
Tide has not grown to trust Casper anymore because
that's fair.
He has no reason to. And he is going to say, it started moving when you started talking. I'm not blaming you, but I want to try again. And if we can just be silent when I go up, it might be a little bit easier. I can see the key once I'm up there.
Casper looks...
No promises on the quiet thing, but I can try.
Okay. Casper looks at the cubes, and he looks at the glass, and he looks at you, Tide, and then he looks at the cubes, and he has, like, the equations flying past his head. I'm gonna see if he's able to make a connection. The brain factory is not on today. Casper just kind of squints, and you get the impression he looks like he's thinking, but it also does not look like he's thinking. So, Tide, are you volunteering to go up again, or is Casper going?
Yeah, I got 61 more HP. Let's try it again.
Yeah. Okay, so you're trying it again. Okay, so Raven, Renori, where are you?
I'm still at the looking glass.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just where I am next to Casper and whatever.
Raven, you do notice that while you're looking through it, the cubes are still shin height, even when Tide approaches them.
Tide, I don't think this is working anymore for you.
Maybe
they're not getting bigger.
Well, I couldn't tell until I started, so bigger on first time, somebody else can try.
Okay,
So
so
Tide takes a step up.
Okay, take the step up. The same disorienting feeling happens, but that earthquakey kind of feeling immediately is here. And Raven, you notice the cubes immediately go into flux. Um, and Casper and Renori, it's kind of alarming to see your teammate wobbling very violently on something that is very still. um, and the Tide, it's not fun. But you do manage to get up to the second step. This is where I'm going to need you to do the acrobatics again.
Okay, 13, little better.
Okay, you do manage to plant yourself, but you are not very steady. So the next step, which will bring you back to where you were, is gonna also need another acrobatics check. There's thresholds. I believe
18.
Nice. Okay, so with that, you're able to take a few more steps, and now you are standing on the edge of the last cube. Is bouncing, and the key is within your reach. Can you roll me a sleight of hand with disadvantage, please?
I sure can. Sleight of hand with disadvantage. That's going to be a 15.
Okay. It's kind of hard to swipe at something when you're, and grab it when you are like going through the wave. It feels like standing on a waterbed that won't stay still. And you take a swipe at the key and you manage to grab it. It almost slips from your fingers, but you kind of orient it back in your hand. You get a firm grip on it, and the cubes stop moving. And you look down, Tide, and they are the size that Raven has been perceiving them at. That they are this staircase, and you are very high up. And you all hear the sort of noise of grinding of stone, and a staircase appears on the right wall heading down. And I think we're going to stop there with a win. Before we go into the next one, so we can also get Jake back. I would have us keep going, but I don't want to go too far without Jake. So,
Fair.
Okay. Chat, if you were here and you got to hang out, whether you came out at the midpoint, you were here from the beginning, thank you. You're the best. I love you. Once again, I don't know if I still have it pasted. Do I? But once again, we have the VOD channel. Yes, I do. We have the VOD channel. Episode 1 is there. The other VODs are going to be going up through this week as fast as I can. They take like 18 million hours to upload, but I will be getting them up. So go ahead and tell your friends. Please check out the pals. Give everybody a follow, a nice support. If you can, please. I appreciate it. And thank you for the subs today, the support and love. And yeah. We will see you next week, I think, at our normal time. That's the plan. And yes. I might be doing some gaming streams during the week, probably DBD. So you will see plenty of me. So for now, thank you guys for hanging out. Love you.
Bye.
And I'll catch you next time. Bye.